Lauren Hayes was about to leave the cafe, another failed blind date, another wasted evening, when three identical blonde girls in red sweaters appeared at her empty table. "Are you Lauren?" they asked in unison. "Our daddy's sorry he's late." What happened next would shatter every wall she'd built around her heart. This is the story of how three brave little girls orchestrated the most unconventional first date in history, proving that sometimes the best love stories don't start with romance. They start with chaos, courage, and tiny matchmakers who refuse to let their father give up on happiness. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The rain had started exactly 7 minutes ago. Lauren knew because she'd been checking her phone obsessively, watching the time tick past 8 o'clock, then 8:15, now approaching 8:30. Each minute felt like a small betrayal, a tiny confirmation of what she'd suspected all along. This was a mistake. Rosewood Cafe sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd, the kind of place that tried too hard to be charming with its Edison bulbs and reclaimed wood tables. Through the large front windows, Lauren could see couples leaning close over candlelit tables, their faces soft with intimacy and promise. She felt like a fraud sitting alone, her carefully applied makeup and the new navy dress she'd agonized over for an hour, now seeming like props in a play where she was the only actor who'd shown up. The waitress, a girl who couldn't have been older than 22, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Sophie, approached for the 3rd time, her smile professional but tinged with pity. "Can I get you anything while you wait?" Sophie asked, her voice carefully neutral. Lauren's laugh came out more bitter than she intended. "Just the check for the water, I think. It's pretty clear he's not coming." "I'm so sorry," Sophie said, and the genuine sympathy in her voice somehow made it worse. "The coffee's on the house, the least I can do." "Thanks," Lauren managed, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "That's kind of you." As Sophie walked away, Lauren pulled out her phone again, her thumb hovering over the conversation with her best friend Maya. She could already imagine the text she'd send, another no-show. "I'm done with this. Dating apps are officially dead to me." Maya would respond with outrage and emojis, would offer to come over with wine and ice cream, would tell her that she deserved better. And she'd be right. Lauren did deserve better. She deserved someone who showed up, literally and figuratively. The problem was, after 3 years of failed first dates, ghosting, and men who seemed perfectly fine until they learned about her medical history, Lauren was starting to wonder if better existed for someone like her. Maybe she was meant to be alone. Maybe that wall she'd built around her heart, brick by careful brick, after her ex-fiancé had shattered her with 4 words, "This isn't what I signed up for." Maybe that wall was there for a reason. She was gathering her coat, preparing to make the walk of shame past all those happy couples, when she heard them. Small voices, giggling, the shuffle of shoes that were probably a size too big. "That's her! That's definitely her!" "Are you sure? What if it's not?" "It has to be. Daddy said she'd be wearing blue and sitting alone." Lauren froze, her coat halfway on, and slowly turned toward the source of the whispers. 3 little girls stood about 10 feet away, partially hidden behind a decorative column near the cafe's entrance. They couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old, and they were absolutely identical. Same blonde curls that fell past their shoulders, same bright blue eyes, same red cable-knit sweaters over white turtlenecks, same nervous energy radiating from their small frames. Triplets. They had to be triplets. And they were staring directly at her. Before Lauren could process what was happening, the tallest of the 3, though tallest was relative when the difference was maybe half an inch, stepped forward with the kind of determined courage that only children possess. The other 2 followed, flanking her like tiny soldiers going into battle. "Excuse me," the leader said, her voice clear and surprisingly confident as they approached Lauren's table. "Are you Lauren? Lauren Hayes?" The question hung in the air, absurd and impossible. Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked around the cafe, half expecting to find cameras, a production crew, someone who could explain why 3 unaccompanied children were approaching her table and saying her full name. Lauren finally managed. "Yes, I'm Lauren, but who are you?" The 3 girls exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. Then they all spoke at once. "We're Aria, and Nora, and I'm Lila." And we're your date's daughters, they finished in unison, their voices blending into one. Lauren felt the world tilt slightly. My dates? What? The girl who'd introduced herself as Arya, the one with a small constellation of freckles across her nose that helped distinguish her from her sisters, took another step closer. Our daddy's name is Evan Grant. You were supposed to meet him here tonight for a blind date. But he's not coming, Nora added quickly, wringing her small hands. She had a tiny scar above her left eyebrow, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I mean, he is coming. He's just late. Really late, Lila confirmed. She was the one with slightly shorter hair than her sisters, cut just above her shoulders. He was so nervous he changed his shirt like 7 times. Lauren's brain struggled to catch up with this information. Your dad, Evan, sent you here to tell me he's running late? No, all 3 girls said together with the emphatic horror of children who'd been caught in mischief. Arya straightened her shoulders. He doesn't know we're here. He thinks we're at home with Mrs. Patterson, our babysitter, but we snuck out the back door while she was on the phone. You what? Lauren's voice came out louder than she intended, causing a few nearby diners to glance their way. She lowered her voice to an urgent whisper. Does anyone know where you are? Does your father know? Does this Mrs. Patterson person know? The girls shook their heads in unison, looking remarkably unconcerned about the fact that they'd just confessed to running away from their babysitter. We left a note, Nora offered helpfully. Well, Lila drew a picture. Same thing. It's not the same thing, Lauren said, her mind racing through the implications of this situation. 3 unaccompanied minors, a babysitter who probably had no idea they were gone, a father who was apparently on his way to a date, unaware that his daughters had staged some kind of intervention. We need to call your dad, right now. Where's your phone? We don't have phones, Arya said matter-of-factly. We're 7. 7? Lauren repeated faintly. Of course you are. But we know Daddy's number, Lila piped up. Want us to tell you? Yes, please. That would be... But we don't want you to call him yet, Arya interrupted, and there was something in her expression, a mixture of desperation and determination, that made Lauren pause. Please, just... Can we sit down for 5 minutes? We came all this way. Sophie, the waitress, appeared at the table, her eyes wide. Lauren, is everything okay? Are these kids with you? Lauren looked at the 3 hopeful faces staring up at her, at the matching red sweaters and the slight trembling in their small hands that suggested they weren't quite as brave as they were pretending to be. Every rational part of her brain was screaming to call their father immediately, to get these children back to safety, to extricate herself from whatever complicated situation she'd somehow stumbled into. But there was something else, too. Something in the way they looked at her, not with the typical shyness of children meeting a stranger, but with a kind of urgent hope that felt oddly familiar. She'd seen that expression before, in her mirror, in the months after her engagement ended. It was the look of someone who needed something to work out so badly that they were willing to take a crazy risk. Give us 5 minutes, Lauren heard herself say to Sophie. Can you bring 3 hot chocolates with extra marshmallows? Sophie hesitated, glancing between Lauren and the girls, clearly trying to decide if she should be calling the police or child services or someone. Are you sure? No, Lauren admitted, but do it anyway. As Sophie walked away, still looking uncertain, Lauren gestured to the empty chairs at her table. Okay, 5 minutes. You 3 sit down and tell me exactly what's going on. And it better be the truth. The girls scrambled into the chairs with barely contained excitement, Arya and Nora on one side, Lila on the other. Up close, Lauren could see more of their individual differences. Nora's glasses had a slight smudge on the left lens. Arya's sweater had a loose thread at the collar. Lila had a Band-Aid wrapped around her right index finger with what looked like a hand-drawn smiley face on it. Okay, Arya began, clearly the designated spokesperson. So our daddy has been really sad. Not like crying sad, Nora clarified quickly. Just quiet sad. The kind where he smiles but his eyes don't. Lauren's chest tightened unexpectedly. She knew that kind of sad. She knew it intimately. Our mom left when we were babies, Lila added, her voice matter-of-fact in the way children spoke about painful truths they'd grown up with. She wanted to be an actress in California. Daddy says she chose her dream, and he chose us. And we love Daddy so much, Arya continued, her voice becoming more passionate. He's the best dad ever. He makes us pancakes every Sunday, even though he always burns them a little bit. He lets us paint our nails rainbow colors. He reads us 3 stories every night instead of just 1 because we all want different ones. He built us a treehouse in the backyard with a password to get in. He's never missed a single dance recital or school play, ever. Even when he had that really bad flu, Nora interjected. He came anyway and sat in the back wearing a mask. But he's lonely, Lila said softly, and suddenly all 3 girls looked impossibly small and sad. We hear him sometimes, late at night, after he thinks we're asleep. He just sits in the kitchen in the dark, not doing anything, just sitting. Lauren felt something crack inside her chest. She wanted to speak, to say something comforting, but her throat had tightened. Arya leaned forward, her blue eyes intense and earnest. He tried dating before, lots of times, but something always goes wrong. Like, one lady was really nice until she found out there were 3 of us, and then she said that was too much responsibility. Another one kept trying to change everything about us. She said our hair was too wild and our clothes didn't match right. Daddy stopped seeing her after she made Nora cry. She said I was too loud, Nora whispered, her eyes downcast. But Daddy said I was perfect exactly how I am. Then tonight, Arya continued, he had this date with you. He's been nervous about it all week. Mrs. Patterson helped him pick out his clothes. He practiced what he was going to say in the mirror. We heard him. What did he say? Lauren asked, surprising herself with the question. Lila giggled slightly. He said, "Hi, I'm Evan, and I'm a single father of triplets who burns pancakes and knows all the words to Frozen. Please don't run away." Despite everything, the strangeness of the situation, the alarm bells still ringing in her head, Lauren found herself smiling. That's actually kind of charming. Right? Arya said enthusiastically. That's what we thought. But then tonight, right before he was supposed to leave, we saw him just standing in the hallway, staring at his car keys. He looked so scared, and we realized, what if he doesn't go? What if he gives up? So we made a plan, Nora continued. We'd come here first, we'd meet you, we'd make sure you were nice, and if you were, we'd tell you to please give Daddy a chance. Even if he's late, Lila added, even if he's nervous and says weird things, because he's really, really good. He's the best person we know. Sophie returned with 3 hot chocolates, setting them down carefully. The girls looked at the drinks with wide eyes, but didn't immediately reach for them, as if they were too nervous to break their focus. Your 5 minutes is almost up, Sophie said quietly to Lauren, her expression still concerned. Should I call someone? Lauren looked at the 3 girls, these tiny humans who'd orchestrated what was possibly the most bizarre and touching gesture she'd ever encountered. They'd snuck away from their babysitter, found their way to this cafe, and were now sitting across from her with their hearts laid bare, pleading for their father's happiness. Not yet, Lauren said. Then to the girls. Okay, I need to know. How did you get here? Please tell me you didn't walk. The girls exchanged guilty looks. We maybe borrowed Mrs. Patterson's Uber account, Arya admitted. She left her phone on the kitchen counter. We know her password because she always uses her cat's name. Muffin Top, Lila added helpfully. The cat's name is Muffin Top. Lauren dropped her head into her hands. Oh my God, you 3 just confessed to identity theft. We left money, Nora said quickly, pulling a crumpled $5 bill from her pocket. For the Uber driver. Is that enough? Probably not, Lauren said, then sighed deeply. Okay, here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to give me your dad's phone number, and I'm going to call him right now. Second, you're going to drink those hot chocolates. Third, wait! Arya grabbed Lauren's hand across the table, her grip surprisingly strong for such a small person. Please, can you please tell us if you're going to give Daddy a chance? Because if you're not, if you're just going to leave and not answer his calls and ghost him like the last lady did, then maybe you should just go now. We don't want him to get hurt again. The raw protectiveness in her voice hit Lauren like a physical blow. These children, barely 7 years old, had already learned to guard their father's heart. They'd watched him get hurt enough times that they felt the need to intervene, to screen his dates, to try and save him from disappointment. Lauren thought about her own walls, the ones she'd built so carefully. She thought about all the dates she'd turned down, all the times she'd left early or not shown up at all the ways she'd protected herself from potential pain. She'd thought she was being smart, being careful. But looking at these three girls, she suddenly saw herself from the outside, saw how that same self-protection could look like rejection to someone else, could add to someone else's pile of hurts. "I'll stay," Lauren heard herself say. "I'll meet your dad. I'll give him a chance." The transformation was immediate. All three girls lit up like someone had turned on a switch inside them, their faces blooming into identical, brilliant smiles. "Really?" Lila breathed. "Really?" Lauren confirmed. "But first we're calling him. Right now. Because he's probably losing his mind, and your poor babysitter is probably having a heart attack." Arya rattled off the phone number, which Lauren quickly dialed. The phone rang once, twice, and then, "Hello?" The voice was male, breathless, with an edge of panic that was almost palpable through the speaker. "Who is this? If you have my daughter's—" "Mr. Grant? Evan?" Lauren interrupted quickly. "This is Lauren Hayes. I was supposed to meet you tonight at Rosewood Cafe." There was a long moment of silence. "Lauren? I don't understand. I'm on my way there now. I'm so sorry I'm late. There was an accident on the highway and traffic was— Wait, why are you calling me? How did you get this number?" "Well," Lauren said, looking at the three anxious faces watching her, "that's an interesting question. Your daughters are here with me." "My daughters are— What?" Even through the phone, Lauren could hear the screech of tires, the blare of a car horn. "Careful," she said urgently. "Don't crash. Everyone's fine. They're safe. But yes, Arya, Nora, and Lila are currently sitting at my table drinking hot chocolate, and they've just finished explaining to me why I should give you a chance." "Oh my God!" His voice had gone hollow with horror. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't even— I'm 10 minutes away. Please just keep them there. Don't let them leave. Mrs. Patterson, I need to call—" "Already on it," came a female voice in the background, presumably the babysitter, who sounded about as frantic as Evan did. "I'll keep them here," Lauren promised. "Drive safely. No rushing. They're perfectly fine." "Lauren," Evan said, and there was something in his voice now. Embarrassment, yes, but also a kind of desperate sincerity. "I swear I didn't know. I would never— This isn't how I wanted—" "I know," Lauren said quietly. "Just get here when you can. We'll be waiting." She ended the call and looked at the three girls, who were now trying very hard to look innocent while simultaneously looking terrified. "Are we in trouble?" Nora whispered. "Oh, you're definitely in trouble," Lauren said. "But not with me. With me, you're just— Well, honestly, I'm not sure what you are. Surprising? Terrifying? Weirdly endearing?" "We're matchmakers," Lila said proudly. "Like in the movies." "Matchmakers usually don't commit crimes," Lauren pointed out. "But okay, since we have about 10 minutes before your dad gets here and probably grounds you until you're 30, how about you tell me more about him? The truth this time. What's he really like?" The girls needed no more encouragement. They launched into a rapid-fire description of their father, how he sang terrible off-key versions of Disney songs in the car, how he let them help cook dinner even though it always took twice as long and made twice as much mess, how he'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, how he came to every single parent-teacher conference and took notes like he was in college, how he cried at the end of sad movies but tried to hide it. "He works really hard," Arya said more seriously. "He's an architect. He designs buildings. Sometimes he works late at night after we go to bed, because he has to do it when we're sleeping so he can spend time with us when we're awake. He makes breakfast every single morning," Nora added, "even when he's really tired, and he always asks us about our dreams from the night before." "And he never makes us feel like we're too much," Lila said softly. "Some people, when they find out there are three of us, they get this look on their face, like they're doing math in their head and deciding it's too much. But Daddy never makes us feel like that. He says we're his three favorite people in the whole universe, and there's no such thing as too much love." Lauren's eyes stung. She blinked rapidly, trying to maintain her composure. "He sounds pretty special." "He is," all three girls said together. Through the cafe window, Lauren saw a figure running, actually sprinting, down the sidewalk through the rain. He was tall, his tie flying behind him like a flag, his dress shirt already soaked through. Even from a distance, she could see the panic and determination in his movements. "I think that's your dad," Lauren said. The girls whipped around to look, then immediately scrambled out of their chairs. Arya grabbed Lauren's hand again, squeezing tight. "Remember," she said urgently, "you promised. You're going to give him a chance." "I promised," Lauren confirmed. The cafe door burst open with enough force to make the bell jingle violently. Evan Grant stood in the doorway, dripping wet, his hair plastered to his forehead, his chest heaving like he'd just run a marathon. His eyes, which were the same bright blue as his daughter's, swept the cafe wildly until they landed on the table where Lauren sat with his 3 girls. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire cafe had gone silent, all eyes on the dramatic entrance. Then Evan was moving again, rushing toward them with a mixture of relief and absolute mortification written across his face. He was handsome, Lauren noticed distantly, tall and broad-shouldered, with strong features softened by obvious exhaustion and current panic. There was gray threading through his dark hair at the temples, and lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, even if he'd been sad lately. "Girls," he said, his voice shaking as he reached the table. "What did you do? What were you thinking?" The triplets had the grace to look somewhat ashamed now, faced with their father's clear distress. "We just wanted to help," Arya said in a small voice. "Help?" Evan ran his hands through his wet hair, making it stand up at odd angles. "You snuck out of the house. You took an Uber without permission. You approached a stranger." "She's not a stranger," Lila interrupted. "She's Lauren, your date." Evan's eyes finally moved to Lauren, and the expression on his face was so utterly apologetic that she almost laughed. "Lauren," he said, "I am so incredibly sorry. I cannot even begin to express how sorry I am. This is not, obviously this is not. I swear I had no idea they were planning." "Breathe," Lauren said gently. "It's okay." "It's not okay," Evan said emphatically. "Nothing about this is okay. My children they basically ambushed you. They probably scared you half to death. You probably think I'm the worst parent in the world, and you'd be completely justified. Actually," Lauren interrupted, "I think you're probably a pretty great parent." That stopped him mid-panic. "What?" "Your daughters love you very much," Lauren said simply. "That much is obvious. They also clearly feel very secure in your love for them, or they wouldn't have felt confident enough to pull off this little stunt. Kids who aren't sure of their parents' affection don't take risks like this." Evan stared at her, water dripping from his clothes onto the cafe floor, his expression somewhere between disbelief and desperate hope. "So," Lauren continued, surprising herself with her own calm, "here's what I'm thinking. You clearly need to get these 3 home and have a serious conversation about boundaries and safety. Mrs. Patterson is probably still freaking out, and you're soaking wet and need dry clothes." "Right," Evan said, his shoulders slumping. "Of course. You're absolutely right. Again, I'm so sorry for ruining your evening. If you want to just forget this whole thing ever happened, I completely understand." "I'm not finished," Lauren said. "I was going to suggest that maybe, after you get the girls settled and have that conversation, you could call me. Maybe we could try this again. Properly this time." The cafe seemed to hold its breath. Evan's eyes widened. "You... what?" "I'm saying yes to a second first date," Lauren clarified. "If you're still interested, that is. Though I should warn you, I have very high standards now. Your daughter set quite a bar for elaborate romantic gestures." The triplets erupted in squeals of delight, bouncing in their seats. "We did it!" Lila shouted. "Mission accomplished." "Quiet," Evan said, but there was no real heat in it. He was staring at Lauren like she'd just announced she could fly. "You're serious? After this disaster, you actually want to—" "I'm serious," Lauren said, "though maybe next time fewer accomplices?" A laugh burst out of Evan, surprised and genuine and completely unguarded. It transformed his whole face, erasing years of stress and sadness in an instant. "I think I can arrange that," he said. "Though I should mention, these 3 come as a package deal. They're part of my life, a big part." "I know," Lauren said softly. looking at the three beaming faces. They made that very clear. What she didn't say, what she couldn't say yet, not to this stranger and his daughters in a crowded cafe, was that she understood now why these girls had taken such a risk. Their father deserved someone who would see past the complications, past the instant family, past the fears and the histories and the ways life had already hurt him. He deserved someone who would stay. And maybe, just maybe, Lauren was tired of running, tired of walls, tired of protecting herself so carefully that she never gave anyone a chance to prove they were worth the risk. "Call me," she said, standing and gathering her coat. "Tomorrow, when everyone's calmed down and dry." She pulled out her business card from her purse and handed it to Evan, whose fingers brushed hers as he took it, sending an unexpected spark of awareness through her. "I will," he promised. "I definitely will." As Lauren walked toward the door, Arya called out behind her, "Lauren?" She turned back. All three girls were standing now, holding hands, forming a small chain. They looked at her with identical expressions of hope and gratitude. "Thank you for staying," Arya said. Such simple words. But Lauren felt them settle into her chest, into all those cracked and guarded places she'd been protecting for so long. "Thank you for finding me," she replied. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the street washed clean and gleaming under the streetlights. Lauren walked to her car, her heels clicking on the wet pavement, and only when she was safely inside did she let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened. She'd gone to that cafe expecting nothing. Another disappointment, another confirmation that love wasn't for her, another brick in her wall. Instead, she'd been found by three tiny, determined girls who'd seen something in her that she'd stopped seeing in herself. The possibility of someone who could stay. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "So? How bad was it?" Lauren typed back. "Actually, I think it might have been perfect. I'll explain later." Then she sat in her car for a long moment, watching through the cafe window as Evan wrapped his arms around his daughters, as they looked up at him with love and mischief and complete trust. She saw him mouth words that looked like, "You're grounded forever," but he was smiling as he said it, and the girls were giggling, unrepentant and triumphant. Something old and painful loosened in Lauren's chest, some knot she'd been carrying for 3 years since the day her fiancé had walked away. She'd thought that day had broken something fundamental in her, had proven that she wasn't enough, that her inability to guarantee children made her somehow deficient, incomplete. But watching this family through the window, this father and his 3 daughters who'd already been abandoned by one person who should have stayed, Lauren understood something new. Family wasn't about biology or guarantees or checking boxes on someone's list of requirements. Family was about who showed up, who stayed, who chose you every single day, even when it was hard. And for the first time in 3 years, Lauren thought maybe she could be that person. Maybe she already was. Her phone buzzed again. Not Maya this time, but an unknown number. "This is Evan. I got your card. The girls are currently writing you formal apology letters." Arya's idea. "I told them it would take at least 50 pages each to cover tonight's crimes. But really, I'm texting to say thank you. And to ask if Saturday works for you? There's a family-friendly restaurant I know, less chaos than tonight. Probably. No promises." Lauren smiled, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. Then she typed, "Saturday sounds perfect. Though after tonight, I'm not sure anything could be more chaotic. Fair warning, I'm going to want to hear all the stories they didn't have time to tell me." The response came quickly. "There are approximately 1 million stories. I hope you have a lot of Saturdays available." "I might," Lauren typed back. "Let's start with one and see where it goes." She drove home through streets still wet with rain, past houses lit with warm yellow light, past lives being lived in ways both ordinary and extraordinary. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lauren Hayes felt something that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. She felt hopeful. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive in the way you expect. Sometimes it doesn't look like flowers and poetry and carefully orchestrated romance. Sometimes it arrives in the form of 3 7-year-old girls in red sweaters, armed with courage and hot chocolate, and an unshakable belief that their father deserves happiness. Sometimes love arrives as chaos, wrapped in determination, delivered by the smallest and bravest messengers you've ever met. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you're smart enough to recognize it, to let down your walls, to take the risk, to stay. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made everything feel possible. Lauren changed her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans and a soft cream sweater, casual enough to seem effortless, nice enough to show she cared. She told herself this was just dinner, just a chance to see if the connection she'd felt in that chaotic cafe encounter was real or just adrenaline and the novelty of the situation. But her hands were shaking as she applied her lipstick, and she knew she was lying to herself. The address Evan had texted led to a quiet residential street lined with oak trees, their leaves turning gold and crimson. His house was a 2-story craftsman with a wraparound porch, bicycles scattered on the lawn, chalk drawings covering the driveway and violent explosions of color. A hand-painted sign near the mailbox read, "Grant Family Castle, password required for entry." Lauren was still smiling at the sign when the front door burst open and 3 familiar figures came tumbling out, still in their pajamas despite it being 4 in the afternoon. "She's here! She's here!" Lila shouted, racing down the porch steps with her sisters right behind her. "Girls, I told you to get dressed!" Evan appeared in the doorway, looking harried and holding what appeared to be a spatula. "We talked about this. You had 2 hours to get ready, and somehow you're still— Lauren! Hi, I'm so sorry. Again, I feel like that's going to be my catchphrase around you." Lauren laughed, genuinely charmed by the chaos. "It's fine, really." The triplets had reached her car, pressing their faces against the window like puppies at a pet store. She could see they'd drawn something on their hands in marker. It looked like matching stars. "Did you bring your appetite?" Arya asked as Lauren got out of the car. "Because Daddy's making his special pasta, and there's always way too much." "That's because you 3 keep inviting people over without telling me," Evan said, but he was smiling as he walked down to meet them. He'd changed since their cafe encounter. He wore dark jeans and a blue Henley that brought out his eyes, and his hair was still damp like he'd just showered. Last week, they invited their art teacher for breakfast. I had 15 minutes notice and 3 eggs. "Mrs. Chen loved it, though," Nora pointed out. "She said your scrambled eggs were the best she'd ever had." Mrs. Chen was being polite, Evan said. He'd reached Lauren now, and up close she could see the nervous energy in his expression, the way he kept shifting his weight from foot to foot. "So, full disclosure before you come inside, the house is a disaster. I tried to clean, but then Lila spilled an entire container of glitter in the living room. Don't ask why she had glitter. I've stopped asking why. And there's currently a blanket fort taking up most of the dining room that I've been forbidden to dismantle. If you want to suggest we go to an actual restaurant instead, I will completely understand." Lauren looked past him to the house, at the warm light spilling from the windows, at the obvious signs of life being lived loudly and fully. Then she looked at the 3 girls watching her with hopeful expressions, their matching star drawings, their pajamas that suggested comfort and Saturday laziness, and a home where you didn't have to be perfect. "I like glitter," she said, "and I've always wanted to see inside a proper blanket fort." The girls cheered. Evan's shoulders dropped about 3 inches with relief. "Okay then," he said. "Welcome to the chaos. Try not to trip over anything or anyone. Lila has a habit of lying on the floor without warning." "I'm pretending to be a rug," Lila explained seriously. "It's called method acting." The inside of the house was exactly what Lauren expected, and somehow more charming because of it. The walls were covered with children's artwork, not neatly framed but taped up haphazardly, overlapping, creating a collage of color and creativity. A massive calendar dominated the kitchen wall, color-coded and covered in notes. Arya, science fair, Nora dentist, Lila, rainbow day at school. The furniture was comfortable and worn, the kind that invited you to actually sit rather than admire. And yes, there was a truly impressive blanket fort constructed from what appeared to be every sheet and pillow in the house, spanning from the dining room into the hallway. "We've been working on it all week," Nora said, noticing Lauren's stare. "It has 7 rooms and a password-protected entrance." "The password is butterscotch," Arya whispered. "But don't tell anyone." "Your secret's safe with me," Lauren promised. Evan had returned to the kitchen, where something was bubbling on the stove. "I'm making carbonara," he called out. "Fair warning, I'm not actually Italian, I just watch a lot of cooking shows. If it's terrible, we have a pizza place on speed dial." Can I help? Lauren asked, moving toward the kitchen while the girls disappeared into their blanket fort, whispering and giggling. You're a guest, Evan protested. You're supposed to sit and be served and definitely not witness my cooking failures. I want to help, Lauren said firmly. Put me to work. Something shifted in Evan's expression, surprise, maybe, or relief. Okay, can you do salad? There's lettuce in the fridge, vegetables in the drawer, knives are in the block by the... I'll find them, Lauren said. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Lauren chopping tomatoes while Evan stirred pasta, their movements creating a kind of domestic rhythm. Through the doorway, she could hear the girls playing, their voices rising and falling in elaborate storytelling. So, Evan said finally, not looking at her, focusing intently on his pasta. I need to apologize again, properly this time. What the girls did, showing up at the cafe, approaching a stranger, it was dangerous and inappropriate, and I've had several serious conversations with them about boundaries and safety. They're grounded for a month, no TV, no tablets, extra chores. They don't seem very upset about it, Lauren observed. That's because they think it was worth it, Evan admitted. Which is its own problem. I can't have them thinking that breaking rules is okay if it turns out well in the end, but honestly, I'm struggling with the discipline thing because part of me is, he trailed off, stirring more vigorously than necessary. Part of you is what? Lauren prompted gently. Evan finally looked at her and there was something raw in his expression. Part of me is grateful, which is terrible parenting, I know, but they did something reckless and it brought you here. And now you're in my kitchen making salad and laughing at my blanket fort, and I keep thinking this is some kind of dream I'm going to wake up from. Lauren's hands stilled on the cutting board. Why would you think that? Because this doesn't happen to me, Evan said simply. Women don't stay. Not when they find out about the girls, about the ex-wife who left, about the fact that I'm basically three people's entire world, and there's not a lot of room left over. I've been on exactly 12 dates in the last 2 years, and 11 of them ended with some version of this is too much, or I'm not ready for instant family, or my personal favorite, you're a great guy but I signed up for a boyfriend, not 3 kids. The bitterness in his voice was carefully controlled, but Lauren heard it anyway. She set down her knife and turned to face him fully. What about the 12th date? She asked. Evan managed a small smile. That one ended with 3 little girls showing up uninvited and somehow convincing a stranger to give me another chance. Still not sure how that worked. They're very persuasive, Lauren said. And for the record, I didn't say yes because they guilted me into it. I said yes because... She paused, trying to find the right words. Through the doorway, she could see Lila's feet sticking out of the blanket fort, waggling in the air. She could smell garlic and butter and something sweet baking in the oven. She could feel the warmth of this house, the love that was so obvious in every chaotic detail. I said yes because they told me you deserved someone who stays, Lauren continued quietly. And I realized I've spent 3 years running from anything that might hurt me again. I've built these walls and hidden behind them and told myself I was being smart, being careful. But your daughters reminded me that careful isn't always the same as living. Evan had stopped stirring entirely now, his full attention on her. What happened 3 years ago? He asked softly. Lauren took a breath. She'd known this conversation would come eventually, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon, in a kitchen that smelled like garlic and hope. I was engaged, she said. His name was David. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 6 months. We were planning this huge wedding, had picked out a venue, sent save the dates, and then I went to the doctor for what I thought was a routine checkup, and found out I have a condition that makes it very unlikely I'll ever be able to have biological children. Not impossible, but the odds aren't good. Evan's expression had gone very still, very focused. I told David that same night, Lauren continued. I thought he'd be supportive, that we'd figure it out together. There are options, right? Adoption, IVF, surrogacy. But he just looked at me and said, this isn't what I signed up for. Like I was a subscription service he wanted to cancel. He left 3 days later, took his stuff while I was at work so he wouldn't have to see me again. Lauren, Evan said, and there was such anger in his voice that she looked up, surprised. His jaw was tight, his hands gripping the counter. That man was an idiot. Maybe, Lauren said, Or maybe he was just honest about what he wanted. No, Evan said firmly. He was an idiot, because family isn't about biology. Family is about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every single day, even when it's hard. My ex-wife gave birth to 3 beautiful girls and then walked away when they were 6 months old. She shares their DNA, but she's not their mother. Not in any way that matters. His voice had risen slightly, and suddenly 3 small faces appeared in the doorway of the blanket fort, curious and concerned. "Daddy," Arya asked, "are you okay?" Evan immediately softened, his whole body language shifting. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just having a grown-up conversation. How's the fort?" "We've added a room for Lauren," Nora announced. "If she wants one. It has a window and everything." "A window?" Lauren asked, grateful for the interruption, for the chance to blink back the tears that had started forming. "A hole in the blanket," Lila clarified, "but we're calling it a window because it sounds better." "I'd love to see it," Lauren said. "After dinner?" "After dinner," the girls agreed, then disappeared back into their fort. Evan turned back to the stove, his movements careful and controlled. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have raised my voice. The idea that someone made you feel like you weren't enough because of something you can't control, it makes me angry." "Join the club," Lauren said, trying for lightness. "I've been angry about it for 3 years." "Are you still angry?" Evan asked, glancing at her. Lauren considered the question. "More sad than angry now. Sad about the time I lost, about the walls I built, about all the chances I didn't take because I was so sure everyone would leave eventually anyway." Evan was quiet for a moment, stirring pasta, his expression thoughtful. Then he said, "Can I tell you something about my ex-wife?" "If you want to," Lauren said. "Her name is Melissa," Evan began. "We met in college. She was studying theater, wanted to be an actress. I was in architecture. We got married young, maybe too young. When she got pregnant, we were both shocked. We hadn't been trying. And then we found out it was triplets, and I thought she was going to pass out right there in the doctor's office." He drained the pasta, the steam rising around him like a curtain. "I was terrified," he continued, "but also excited. I started reading every parenting book I could find, baby-proofing the house, building cribs. Melissa went through the motions, but I could tell her heart wasn't in it. She kept talking about an audition in LA, about how this was going to derail her career. I told her we'd figure it out, that having kids didn't mean she had to give up her dreams." Lauren stayed quiet, letting him tell the story at his own pace. "The girls were born premature," Evan said, 6 weeks early. They had to stay in the NICU for 3 weeks. I practically lived at that hospital, doing kangaroo care, reading to them through the incubator glass, learning how to change diapers that were smaller than my hand. Melissa came a few times, but mostly she was preparing for that audition. Said she couldn't miss the opportunity. His voice had gone flat, emotionless, the way people sound when they're talking about something that hurt too much to feel. "She got the part," he continued, 3 days after we brought the girls home. I said congratulations, thinking she'd turn it down, or at least wait a few months. But she just looked at me and said, "I'm going." Not "we're going," just "I'm going." She was on a plane to California within a week, filed for divorce 2 weeks after that, signed away custody without a fight. "Evan," Lauren said softly. "The last thing she said to me was, 'I never wanted this life,'" Evan finished. "And then she was gone. I haven't seen her since. She sends birthday cards sometimes, usually late, never calls, never visits." The girls ask about her occasionally, and I try to answer honestly without making her the villain. But honestly, I don't understand how you walk away from your children. I don't understand how you look at 3 tiny humans who need you and just leave. He set down his spoon and turned to face Lauren fully, his eyes bright with emotion. "So when you tell me someone made you feel like you weren't enough because you might not be able to have biological children, I need you to understand something," he said intensely. "Those 3 girls in that blanket fort? They're the best thing that ever happened to me. Every exhausting, chaotic, beautiful moment of being their father is worth it. And if someone can't see that family isn't about DNA, if they need some biological guarantee before they can commit to loving someone, then they don't deserve you. They don't deserve any of this." Lauren's eyes were definitely wet now, tears sliding down her cheeks before she could stop them. She wiped them away quickly, but Evan saw. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I'm making you cry. That's not... I didn't mean to..." "They're good tears," Lauren interrupted. "I promise. It's just been a long time since someone said anything like that to me. Since someone understood." They stood in the kitchen, two people who'd been left behind by people who should have stayed, and something passed between them. A recognition, an understanding, a tentative hope that maybe they'd found someone who got it. "Daddy," Arya's voice called from the fort, "is dinner almost ready? We're starving in here." "You're always starving," Evan called back, but he was smiling. He lowered his voice and said to Lauren, "Fair warning, dinner with 3 7-year-olds is chaos. They'll talk with their mouths full, fight over who gets the biggest portion, probably spill at least one drink. If you want to run now, I'll understand." "I'm not running," Lauren said firmly. "I'm staying for dinner, and the blanket fort tour and whatever else this evening brings. Even if it brings glitter? Because I still haven't found where all the glitter came from, and I have a theory it might reproduce on its own." Lauren laughed genuinely and fully, and watched Evan's face light up at the sound. "Even the glitter," she promised. Dinner was exactly as chaotic as advertised. They ate at the kitchen table because the dining room was occupied by the fort, and within minutes there was pasta sauce on 3 faces, 2 spilled glasses of milk, Lila and Nora, both within 10 seconds of each other, and a heated debate about whether dolphins or sharks would win in a fight. "Dolphins," Arya insisted. "They're smarter, and they work in teams." "But sharks have better teeth," Nora countered, "and they're bigger." "Size isn't everything," Lila announced with the authority of someone CEO who'd clearly heard this phrase somewhere. "Daddy's always saying that, right, Daddy?" "I say a lot of things," Evan replied diplomatically. "Mostly things like, use your napkin and chew with your mouth closed." "What do you think, Lauren?" Arya asked. "Dolphins or sharks?" All 3 girls stopped eating, waiting for her answer with the intense interest usually reserved for matters of national importance. "Well," Lauren said carefully, "I think dolphins are incredible creatures with complex social structures and problem-solving abilities. But I also think sharks are perfectly adapted predators that have survived basically unchanged for millions of years. So maybe the real question is, why do they have to fight? Maybe they can both be amazing in their own ways." The girls considered this. "That's a very diplomatic answer," Evan murmured, impressed. "I'm a lawyer," Lauren whispered back. "Diplomacy is kind of my thing." "You're a lawyer?" Arya asked, her eyes going wide. "Like on TV, do you yell objection and stuff?" "Sometimes," Lauren admitted, "though it's usually less dramatic than TV makes it look. A lot of paperwork and meetings." "What kind of law?" Evan asked, genuinely curious. "Family law," Lauren said. "Mostly custody cases, adoption, some divorce work. I help families navigate complicated situations and hopefully come out better on the other side." Something flickered across Evan's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition of some cosmic irony. "That must be hard," he said quietly. "Seeing families fall apart." "Sometimes," Lauren agreed, "but I also get to see them come together. I helped finalize 3 adoptions last month. Got to watch 3 kids who'd been in foster care for years finally become permanent parts of their families. That makes the hard cases worth it." "Do you like kids?" Lila asked bluntly. "Because some grown-ups say they like kids, but then they don't actually want to be around kids." "Lila," Evan said warningly. "It's a fair question," Lauren said. She looked at the 3 girls, their faces smudged with sauce and hope. "Honestly, I love kids. I always have. That's why I do the work I do. I wanted children of my own, but that might not happen the traditional way. But there are a lot of ways to be part of kids' lives, to make a difference. So yes, I like kids. Very much." The girls exchanged one of their silent triplet communications, something passing between them that only they understood. "Good," Nora said finally. "Because we like you too." "Even though you made us write those apology letters," Lila added. "Especially because of that," Arya corrected. "It means she thinks we should be responsible for our actions. Daddy says that's important." After dinner, while Evan cleared dishes despite Lauren's offers to help, the girls grabbed her hands and pulled her toward the blanket fort. You have to crouch down for the entrance, Arya instructed, and remember the password. Butterscotch, Lauren whispered. Access granted, all three girls chorused. Inside the fort was better than Lauren could have imagined, a genuine engineering marvel of sheets, blankets, and what appeared to be a significant portion of Evan's book collection serving as structural support. Strings of battery-powered fairy lights created a warm glow. Pillows were scattered everywhere. And in one corner, there was indeed a room marked with a hand-drawn sign that said, Lauren's room, with hearts around the letters. We weren't sure if you'd come back, Nora said softly, sitting cross-legged on a pillow. After the cafe. We thought maybe we scared you away. You did kind of terrify me, Lauren admitted, settling into what was apparently her designated space. But in a good way, you reminded me that sometimes the scary things are worth it. Are you going to keep dating our dad? Lila asked with characteristic directness. Lila, Arya hissed, you can't just ask that. Why not? Grown-ups always tell us to be honest. Lauren considered how to answer. These children had already been abandoned by one mother figure. They didn't need empty promises or careful evasions. They needed the truth, as much as she could give them. I like your dad, Lauren said carefully. I like him a lot. But dating is complicated, and I can't promise anything about the future because nobody can. What I can promise is that I'll always be honest with you, and with him. And if things don't work out, it won't be because of you three. You're pretty wonderful, actually. Really? Nora asked hopefully. Really, Lauren confirmed. You're brave and creative, and you love your dad so much that you staged an elaborate intervention. That's remarkable. Mrs. Patterson says we're precocious, Arya offered. Is that the same as remarkable? It's in the same neighborhood, Lauren said, smiling. They spent the next hour in the fort, the girls showing Lauren their various treasures, a collection of smooth rocks Nora had gathered from different places, Lila's drawings of increasingly elaborate princesses, Arya's hand-drawn star charts with made-up constellations. They told her stories about school, about their friends, about the time Evan tried to install a zip line in the backyard and nearly ended up in the emergency room. He's not very good at building things, Arya confided, which is funny because he designs buildings for his job. There's a difference between drawing buildings and building buildings, came Evan's voice from outside the fort. And I was only mostly going to the emergency room. It was fine. You fell 12 feet into the azalea bushes, Nora called back. Mrs. Patterson had to pull branches out of your hair for like an hour. Worth it, Evan said. Almost had it working too. Lauren laughed, imagining this serious architect tumbling into landscaping, and felt something warm and unfamiliar spreading through her chest. Contentment, maybe. Or belonging. Or just the simple pleasure of being somewhere she wanted to be. When she finally emerged from the fort, she found Evan on the couch, laptop open, but clearly not working, just waiting. He looked up as she appeared, brushing blanket lint from her hair, and his expression was so soft, so openly hopeful, that it made her heart skip. They didn't interrogate you too badly? He asked. Nothing I couldn't handle, Lauren assured him. Though I should mention they have questions about our potential future that I diplomatically deflected. Evan groaned, dropping his head back against the couch. I'm sorry. They're not exactly subtle. They're protective, Lauren said, sitting down beside him, close enough to feel his warmth, far enough to maintain some propriety. They don't want you to get hurt again. I understand that. What about you? Evan asked quietly. What do you want? It was a big question, maybe too big for a first real date in a house full of children and chaos. But Lauren found herself wanting to answer it honestly, to take the risk of being vulnerable. I want to stop being afraid, she said. I want to see where this goes without assuming it will end badly. I want to believe that maybe the universe put 3 determined little girls in my path for a reason. Evan reached out slowly, telegraphing his intention, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand covered hers where it rested on the couch between them. I want that too, he said, and I want you to know this thing with us, whatever it becomes, it won't be like before. I'm not going anywhere. Neither are my girls. We're a package deal, and I know that's a lot to take on, but we're also loyal. We're also the kind of people who stay. I'm starting to see that, Lauren said softly. They sat like that for a long moment, hands linked, three giggling voices filtering from the blanket fort, the house settling around them with comfortable creaks and sighs. Can I ask you something? Evan said. Anything. Why did you really say yes to coming here tonight? Because I've been wondering if maybe you just felt obligated after everything with the girls. Lauren turned to look at him directly, making sure he could see the truth in her eyes. I said yes because when I was sitting in that cafe, listening to your daughters talk about you, the pancakes you burn, the stories you read, the way you've built your entire life around making sure they feel loved and secure, I realized I was listening to them describe the kind of man I'd stopped believing existed. Someone who doesn't run when things get hard. Someone who understands that love is a choice you make every day, not just a feeling that shows up when it's convenient. Evan's grip on her hand tightened. And then when you came running in, Lauren continued, soaking wet and panicking and so clearly mortified, but also so obviously in love with those three girls, I thought, this is what it looks like when someone stays. This is what it looks like when someone chooses their family over and over again. And I wanted to know more about that. About you. Lauren, Evan said, and her name on his lips sounded like something precious. Before either of them could say anything else, three small bodies came tumbling out of the blanket fort in a cascade of giggling chaos. It's 8:30, Arya announced. Bedtime. You're reminding me? Evan asked incredulously. Usually I have to chase you around the house for an hour. We're being responsible, Nora said virtuously. So we get ungrounded faster. Nice try, Evan said. But you're still grounded for a month. Was worth a shot, Lila said philosophically. The bedtime routine was another revelation in controlled chaos. Three girls needed to brush teeth simultaneously at the same sink with much elbowing, put on pajamas, which involved a heated debate about whether it was cold enough for the fuzzy ones, and select bedtime stories, a process that took longer than the actual reading would. You can go if you want, Evan told Lauren as he herded the girls upstairs. I know this part isn't exactly exciting date material, but Lauren found herself following them up the stairs, curious about this final piece of their nightly ritual. The girls' room was exactly what she expected. 3 beds arranged in a triangle, walls painted a soft purple, more artwork taped everywhere, shelves overflowing with books and toys, and mysterious collections of things only 7-year-olds found valuable. The girls piled into a single bed, Arya's apparently, and looked at Lauren expectantly. Are you going to stay for stories? Lila asked. Lauren glanced at Evan, who shrugged with a small smile that said your choice. If that's okay, Lauren said. It's very okay, Nora confirmed, patting the empty space on the bed beside her. They read 3 books, The Paper Bag Princess, Roxaboxen, and Extra Yarn, with Evan doing voices and the girls correcting him when he got words wrong or skipped pages they'd memorized. Lauren watched from her spot, wedged between Nora and the headboard, and felt that unfamiliar warmth spreading again. When the stories were done and the lights were off except for a small nightlight shaped like a moon, the girls extracted promises of waffles for breakfast and kisses on foreheads. Evan tucked blankets with practiced efficiency, knowing exactly how tight each girl liked them. Good night, Lauren, 3 voices chorused as she moved toward the door. Good night, she replied. Thank you for sharing your fort with me. You can come back any time, Arya said sleepily. Your room will still be there. Downstairs, the house felt different in the quiet, larger somehow, but also more intimate. Evan locked the front door, checked windows, turned off lights with the automatic movements of routine. Coffee? He offered. Or wine? I have both, though the wine is probably better. The coffee is left over from this morning and might be considered a war crime. Wine sounds perfect, Lauren said. They ended up back on the couch with 2 glasses of red wine that was actually quite good, the blanket fort looming in their peripheral vision like a benevolent monument to childhood imagination. So, Evan said, how was your first Grant family dinner experience? On a scale of never coming back to surprisingly tolerable? Try actually wonderful, Lauren said. Your girls are amazing. You're amazing. This whole thing is chaotic, Evan supplied. I was going to say real, Lauren corrected. It's messy and loud and imperfect, but it's real. It's people loving each other and showing up and making it work. That's rare. Evan looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Can I kiss you? He asked quietly. I've been wanting to since you showed up today, but I didn't want to presume, and the girls were always right there, and… Yes, Lauren interrupted. Yes, you can kiss me. He set down his wine glass carefully, then took hers and set it aside too. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone, and Lauren's breath caught at the tenderness of it. When his lips met hers, it was soft and questioning, a kiss that asked permission even as it was happening. Lauren answered by leaning into him, her hands finding his shoulders, and felt him sigh against her mouth. The kiss deepened slowly, naturally, like they were learning a language together. When they finally pulled apart, Evan rested his forehead against hers, his breath warm on her face. I really like you, he said, in case that wasn't clear. Lauren laughed softly. I really like you too, in case the fact that I'm still here wasn't clear. They stayed like that for another hour, talking in low voices about everything and nothing. His work, her cases, their childhoods, their favorite movies, the dreams they'd had before life got complicated. And when Lauren finally left, stepping out into the cool night air, Evan walked her to her car with his hand warm in hers. So, he said as she opened her door, can I see you again? And before you answer, know that the girls will probably stage another intervention if you say no. Definitely yes, Lauren said. Though maybe we could do something just the two of us next time? Not that I don't love your daughters, but you'd like to have a conversation that doesn't involve debates about marine life combat, Evan finished. I understand completely. How about dinner, real dinner, at a restaurant, like adults do? That sounds perfect. He kissed her again, slower this time, and Lauren felt that warmth in her chest expand into something bigger, something that felt dangerously close to hope. As she drove home, her phone buzzed with a text. The girls want to know if you like waffles. Apparently you're invited for breakfast next Saturday. No pressure. Lauren smiled, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. She typed back, I love waffles. Tell them I'll be there. His response was immediate. Fair warning, I'm probably going to burn them. I'm counting on it, Lauren replied. The waffles were indeed burned. Not catastrophically, just enough that the edges had that deep brown crispness that spoke of distraction rather than incompetence. Lauren arrived at 9 on Saturday morning to find Evan standing at the stove with a spatula, looking flustered while 3 girls in matching unicorn pajamas cheered him on like he was competing in some kind of culinary Olympics. You can do it, Daddy, Lila shouted. Just don't forget to flip it this time. I never forget to flip, Evan protested, then immediately proved himself wrong by letting the current waffle sit too long. Okay, I sometimes forget to flip. Always, Arya corrected. You always forget. Lauren knocked on the door frame, already smiling. Evan looked up, and his whole face transformed, that shift from harried single father to man who was genuinely happy to see her happening in real time. You came, he said, like he'd half expected her to change her mind. I said I would, Lauren replied, stepping inside. She held up a bag from the local bakery, though I brought backup just in case the waffles situation became critical. Muffins, Nor identified immediately, rushing over. Are they the ones with the crumbly stuff on top? Blueberry with streusel, Lauren confirmed. The woman at the bakery promised they were life-changing. She wasn't wrong, Evan said, abandoning his post at the waffle maker to take the bag from her. His fingers brushed hers deliberately this time, not an accident but a choice. And Lauren felt that flutter again, the one that had been showing up more and more frequently when she was around him. The week between their first dinner and this morning had been filled with texts that started practical and devolved into late-night conversations about nothing important. Evan sent her pictures of the girls' art projects with captions like, "Is this abstract expressionism, or did someone spill paint? Discuss." She responded with photos of her office's terrible coffee machine and the stray cat that had adopted their parking lot. They talked about their days, their frustrations, their small victories. It was easy and comfortable and terrifying in how natural it felt. They'd had their adult dinner on Wednesday, a quiet Italian place where they could actually hear each other talk. Evan had told her about his current project, designing a community center for a neighborhood that desperately needed one. Lauren had shared stories about her cases, the families she was helping piece back together. They'd held hands across the table like teenagers, and when he'd kissed her goodnight in the restaurant parking lot, Lauren had felt something shift inside her, some wall crumbling just a little more. Now, watching him attempt to salvage breakfast while his daughters offered contradictory advice, Lauren felt that shift continue. This was what she'd been missing, she realized. Not perfection, not someone who had it all figured out, but someone who tried, who showed up, who burned waffles and laughed about it and kept going anyway. "Okay, everyone to the table," Evan announced, carrying a plate stacked with slightly too dark waffles. "And before anyone comments, yes, they're a little crispy. It builds character." "That's what you always say," Lila said, but she was grinning as she climbed into her chair. They ate at the kitchen table again. Apparently the blanket fort was a permanent fixture now, and Lauren found herself falling into the rhythm of their breakfast conversation. The girls talked over each other, sharing dreams and plans and elaborate stories about their week at school. Arya had a science project due about planets and was considering building Saturn out of paper mache. Nora had finally mastered her times tables and wanted everyone to know it. Lila had been chosen to feed the class hamster over winter break and was treating this responsibility like a presidential appointment. "We have to make a schedule," Lila explained seriously, syrup on her chin. "So Mr. Whiskers gets food at the same time every day. Routine is important for animals." "Where'd you learn that?" Evan asked. "From you," Lila said matter-of-factly. "You always say routine is important. That's why we have the same bedtime every night and the same breakfast every Saturday." Evan caught Lauren's eye across the table, something vulnerable in his expression. She understood what he wasn't saying, that routine was how he'd survived those early years alone with 3 babies. That structure was what had kept him from falling apart when his ex-wife left. That these small rituals were how he showed his daughters that some things could be counted on even when other things fell through. After breakfast, while Evan tackled the dishes despite Lauren's protests, the girls dragged her outside to see the backyard. It was bigger than she'd expected, with that infamous treehouse visible in an old oak tree, a sandbox that had seen better days, and a garden bed that looked like it had once been ambitious but was now mostly overtaken by weeds. "Daddy planted vegetables last spring," Nora explained, seeing where Lauren was looking. "But then we forgot to water them and everything died except the tomatoes. Tomatoes are apparently indestructible." "Very resilient," Lauren agreed, examining the tangled vines that had indeed survived against all odds. "Can you garden?" Arya asked. "Because Daddy's really bad at it, but he keeps trying." "I'm okay at it," Lauren said. "My mom had a garden when I was growing up. I used to help her." "Had?" Lila caught the past tense immediately. "She passed away when I was in college," Lauren said gently. "Cancer. But I have good memories of working in the garden with her." The girls went quiet for a moment, that particular childhood silence when they're processing something sad and trying to figure out the right response. "That's really sad," Arya said finally. "We're sorry." "Thank you," Lauren said. "It was a long time ago, but I still miss her." "We never met our mom," Nora offered, like she was sharing something equivalent. "Well, we did when we were babies, but we don't remember it. So it's like we never met her." "Do you miss her anyway?" Lauren asked carefully. "Even though you don't remember her?" The girls looked at each other, that silent triplet communication happening again. "Sometimes," Arya admitted, "like at school when they do Mother's Day projects, and everyone else has someone to make cards for. Daddy helps us make cards, but it's not the same." "Or when our friends talk about their moms and we don't have any stories," Lila added. "We just have Daddy stories." "Those are good stories, though," Nora said quickly, like she was worried about being disloyal. "Daddy's the best. We don't need a mom because we have him." But Lauren heard what they weren't saying, that maybe they did want a mom, that maybe there was a space in their lives that their father, as wonderful as he was, couldn't completely fill. It was a complicated thing, this balance between being grateful for what you had and acknowledging what you were missing. "You know what my mom used to tell me?" Lauren said. "She said that families come in all different shapes and sizes. Some families have 2 parents, some have 1, some have grandparents, or aunts and uncles, or foster parents. What makes a family isn't who's there, it's how they love each other." That's what Daddy says too, Arya said softly. Well, your daddy's a smart man, Lauren replied. They showed her the treehouse next, which required climbing a rope ladder that swayed alarmingly. Inside was a tiny space barely big enough for all four of them, decorated with drawings and a few battery-powered lanterns. Through a small window, Lauren could see back to the house, where Evan was visible through the kitchen window, still doing dishes. We come up here when we need to have private meetings, Nora explained. Without Daddy. What do you meet about? Lauren asked. The girls exchanged looks again. Lately, Arya said. About you. Lauren's heart did a complicated flip. About me? We're trying to figure out if you're going to stay, Lila said with her characteristic bluntness. Because we really like you and we think Daddy really likes you, but we've liked other people before and they always leave. The pain in those simple words was staggering. Lauren thought about what Evan had told her. 11 failed dates, women who'd decided 3 kids were too much, who'd walked away from this family like they were a burden rather than a gift. I can't promise you anything about forever, Lauren said carefully, honestly, because life is complicated and sometimes things don't work out even when people try really hard. But I can promise you this. If I ever do leave, it won't be because of you. It won't be because you're too much or too loud or too anything. You 3 are wonderful exactly as you are. But you might leave anyway? Nora asked, her voice small. I don't want to, Lauren said, but I think it's important to be honest instead of making promises I might not be able to keep. What I can tell you is that I really like being around you and your dad. You make me laugh. You make me feel like I'm part of something special. And I want to keep feeling that way for as long as possible. Arya studied her face like she was trying to read something written there. You're different than the other ones, she said finally. You don't look scared when we're all talking at once. And you didn't leave even when Daddy burned the waffles. The waffles weren't that bad, Lauren said diplomatically. They were pretty bad, Lila countered, but you ate them anyway. And you brought muffins. That's like really nice. Plus you're pretty, Nora added, and you smell good, like vanilla and something else. Probably my shampoo, Lauren said, charmed by this assessment. Our mom was pretty too, Arya said quietly. Daddy has pictures, but Daddy says pretty doesn't matter if someone isn't kind. He says kind is better than pretty. Your dad's right, Lauren agreed. Though for the record, I think being kind and pretty isn't mutually exclusive. You 3 are both. This pleased them immensely, their faces lighting up with that uncomplicated joy of children receiving compliments. They climbed down from the treehouse to find Evan standing at the base of the tree, looking up with an expression that suggested he'd heard at least part of their conversation. Everything okay up there? He called. We were having a private meeting, Lila informed him, about private things. I'm sure you were, Evan said dryly. Well, when you're done with your private things, there are leaves to rake and someone promised to help. He looked meaningfully at his daughters. The girls groaned but scattered to find rakes, leaving Lauren and Evan alone under the oak tree. The autumn sun filtered through the remaining leaves, dappling everything gold and amber. They asked you if you're going to stay, didn't they? Evan said quietly. How did you know? Because they ask everyone, he admitted, usually within the first 2 meetings. They've learned to screen people early, I think. Try to figure out who's temporary and who might stick around. That's heartbreaking, Lauren said. It is, Evan agreed, but I also understand it. They're protecting themselves, and protecting me in their own way. He paused, then asked carefully, What did you tell them? The truth, Lauren said. That I can't promise forever, but I'm not planning to leave. That if I do, it won't be because of them. Evan's jaw tightened. That's more honesty than most people give them. Thank you for that. They deserve honesty, Lauren said simply. They spent the next hour raking leaves, which devolved into the girls jumping in the piles, which led to Evan mock chasing them around the yard, which ended with everyone slightly sweaty and covered in leaf debris. Lauren found herself laughing so hard her sides hurt, watching this grown man play monster with his daughters, roaring dramatically while they shrieked and scattered. You're really good with them, she told him later, when they'd collapsed on the porch steps with glasses of lemonade while the girls drew hopscotch squares on the driveway with chalk. I don't know about that, Evan said. I feel like I'm making it up as I go most of the time. There's no manual for single-parenting triplets. You should write one, Lauren suggested. Chapter 1. Burn breakfast, build character. He laughed, that wonderful unguarded sound that made her chest feel warm. Chapter 2. When in doubt, let them build a blanket fort. It buys you at least 2 hours of peace. Chapter 3? Lauren prompted. Evan looked at her, his expression softening. Ask for help when you need it, and let people in, even when it's scary. The weight behind those words settled between them. Lauren understood he wasn't just talking about parenting advice anymore. Is it scary? She asked quietly. Letting me in? Terrifying, Evan admitted. Because the girls are already attached to you, I can see it. And if this doesn't work out, I'm not the only one who gets hurt. I know, Lauren said. I'm scared too. I'm scared I'll disappoint them. I'm scared I'll disappoint you. I'm scared I'll mess this up somehow because I've never done this before. The instant family thing. I don't know how to be what you need. Evan set down his lemonade and turned to face her fully. Can I tell you what I need? What we need. Lauren nodded, her throat tight. We need someone who shows up, Evan said simply. Someone who doesn't run when things get messy. Someone who can love 3 chaotic 7-year-olds and burn waffles and raking leaves that we'll just have to rake again next week. That's it. That's the whole list. That seems manageable, Lauren said, trying for lightness but hearing the emotion in her own voice. Good, Evan said. Because you're already doing it. You're already here. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers, and they sat like that on the porch steps while the afternoon sun slanted across the yard and the girls' laughter echoed off the houses around them. Lauren felt something loosen in her chest, some final piece of armor she'd been wearing for 3 years, some protection she was finally willing to set aside. This was what healing looked like, she realized. Not dramatic or sudden, but gradual. Quiet moments on porch steps, burned waffles and honest conversations, children who asked hard questions and adults who tried to answer them truthfully. It was imperfect and uncertain and absolutely terrifying, and it was exactly what she wanted. The following weeks fell into a pattern that felt both new and comfortable. Lauren started coming over more regularly. Wednesday dinners became standing dates. Saturday mornings expanded to include most of Saturday. She met Mrs. Patterson, the babysitter, who looked enormously relieved that Evan had finally found someone who seemed likely to stick around. She helped with homework and learned that each girl had different learning styles. Arya needed quiet and space to think, Nora needed to talk things through, and Lila needed to physically move while she worked. She was there when Arya's science project exploded all over the kitchen, literally exploded, with paper maché and paint everywhere. She helped clean up while Evan tried not to laugh, and Arya cried tears of frustration. Together they rebuilt Saturn, better than before, and Lauren learned that sometimes the disasters led to the best results. She was there when Nora lost her first tooth at dinner, blood everywhere, and excitement even more abundant. She helped the tooth fairy remember to actually show up, something Evan had forgotten twice before, leading to elaborate explanations about the tooth fairy's busy schedule. She was there when Lila got sick, just a cold, but the kind that made small children miserable and clingy. She sat with the girl on the couch, watching endless episodes of nature documentaries while Lila dozed against her shoulder, and felt something fierce and protective bloom in her chest. But it wasn't all sweetness and light. There were hard moments too. There was the night Lauren came over for dinner and found Arya angry at her in a way that seemed to come from nowhere. The girl barely spoke, answered questions with single words, and eventually burst out with, "You can't just come in here and act like you're our mom. You're not our mom." The words landed like a slap. Lauren felt Evan tense beside her, ready to intervene, but she held up a hand to stop him. "You're absolutely right," Lauren said calmly, even though her heart was racing. "I'm not your mom. I'm not trying to be your mom. I'm Lauren. And I care about you and your sisters and your dad. But I know I can't replace someone, even someone you never knew." Arya had stared at her, tears streaming down her face, and finally whispered, "What if we forget we're supposed to miss her?" The question broke Lauren's heart. She knelt down to be at Arya's eye level and said gently, "You can miss the idea of her and still let other people into your life. Those things don't cancel each other out. Love doesn't work like that. There's always room for more." It didn't fix everything immediately. Arya was withdrawn for the rest of that evening, and Lauren went home feeling shaken, wondering if she'd said the wrong thing. But Evan texted her later, "She's okay. You're okay. These moments happen. Thank you for not making it about you." And the next time Lauren came over, Arya gave her a drawing she'd made. A family of stick figures under a rainbow. 4 figures, not 3. Lauren was included. There was also the afternoon at the grocery store. Lauren had offered to take the girls shopping while Evan worked on a deadline. It should have been simple. It was decidedly not. Nora wanted the sugary cereal that Evan never bought. Lila decided she was suddenly allergic to everything they usually ate, despite having no allergies. Arya got overwhelmed by the crowds and started crying in the frozen food aisle. Lauren found herself standing there with one sobbing child, one demanding child, and one child attempting to sneak contraband into the cart while she was distracted, and thought, this is what I signed up for. This chaos, this realness. She got them home eventually, no one happy, but everyone alive. And when Evan saw the exhaustion on her face, he just hugged her and said, "Welcome to parenting triplets. Still want to stick around?" "Ask me after I've had wine," Lauren had replied. But she came back. She kept coming back. Through the good days and the hard days, through the moments that felt like maybe this could work, and the moments that felt impossible. She came back because somewhere along the way, these 4 people had become essential to her. Because going home to her quiet apartment started feeling lonely instead of peaceful. Because she'd catch herself thinking, I should tell Evan about this, or the girls would love this, instead of keeping her experiences separate. Maya noticed the change in her. "You're different," her best friend said one night over drinks. "Lighter, somehow. Like you're not carrying around all that weight anymore." "I think I'm healing," Lauren admitted. "I think I'm finally moving past what David did to me." "Because of Evan?" Maya asked. "Because of all of them," Lauren corrected. "The girls remind me every day that family is about choice, not biology. Evan reminds me that some people actually do stay. And together, they're teaching me that maybe I'm worthy of being chosen, even with all my complications." "You always were worthy," Maya said firmly. "You just needed to believe it." "Yeah," Lauren agreed softly. "I think I'm starting to." One evening in late October, Lauren arrived at the house to find Evan in the kitchen, visibly upset. The girls were in the living room, quieter than usual, playing with unusual solemnity. "What's wrong?" Lauren asked immediately. Evan handed her his phone open to an email. It was from Melissa, his ex-wife. Lauren skimmed it quickly, her heart sinking with each line. "Evan, I'm reaching out because I've been thinking a lot about the girls lately. I made a mistake leaving the way I did. I'd like to see them, maybe start having regular visits. I know I don't have legal custody, but I am still their mother. They deserve to know me. Please consider it. Melissa." "When did this come?" Lauren asked. "An hour ago," Evan said. His hands were shaking slightly. "It's been 3 years since she left. 3 years of nothing but birthday cards that show up late, if they show up at all. And now suddenly she wants to be involved? What are you going to do?" Evan ran his hands through his hair. That gesture she'd learned meant he was stressed. "I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell. She doesn't get to walk in and out whenever it's convenient for her. But the other part knows the girls might want to know their mother," Lauren finished gently. "Yeah," Evan said heavily. He looked at her with something desperate in his eyes. "What do I do, Lauren? How do I protect them from this?" Lauren thought about all the cases she'd handled, all the families navigating complicated custody situations, and absent parents who suddenly reappeared. She thought about the law, about parental rights, and children's best interests, but mostly she thought about 3 little girls in the living room who'd already been abandoned once. "You tell them the truth," Lauren said finally, "age-appropriate truth, but truth. And then you let them help decide, in whatever way 7-year-olds can decide. Because trying to protect them by keeping it secret will only hurt them more later." "You sound like a lawyer," Evan said, but there was affection in it. "I am a lawyer," Lauren reminded him, "and I've seen this play out dozens of times. Kids always find out eventually. Better they hear it from you, in a way you can control." Evan pulled her into a hug, his face buried against her shoulder. "I don't know what I did to deserve you showing up in my life," he said, muffled against her sweater. "You raised 3 brave little girls who weren't afraid to take a risk," Lauren replied, holding him tight. That's what you did. They told the girls together that evening after dinner. Evan sat them down in the living room and explained as gently as possible that their mother had reached out and wanted to see them. The reactions were predictably mixed and complicated. Arya asked immediately, "Does she want to stay this time?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Evan said honestly. "We'd have to talk about it more." Nora wanted to know what Melissa looked like now, if she'd changed, if she still remembered them even though they were babies when she left. Lila, surprisingly, was the most direct. Why did she leave if she's just going to come back? It was the question they were all thinking. Evan struggled for an answer, and Lauren found herself speaking up. "Sometimes adults make really hard choices," she said carefully. "Choices that don't make sense to kids, or even to other adults. Your mom chose to follow her dream, and your dad chose to stay with you. Those were their choices. But people can change their minds. People can realize they made mistakes." "Did you make a mistake?" Lila asked, turning to look at Lauren directly. "When you chose to come to the cafe that night?" The question hung in the air. Lauren felt Evan's eyes on her, felt the weight of what her answer would mean. "No," Lauren said firmly. "That was the best choice I've made in a long time." Arya started crying then, not loud, just silent tears running down her cheeks. "What if she takes us away from Daddy? What if she decides she wants us back?" "That's not going to happen," Evan said immediately, pulling her into his lap. "I have full custody. Nobody's taking you anywhere. This would just be visits, if we decide to do them at all, and we'll decide together, all of us." "Even Lauren?" Nora asked. "Does Lauren get to help decide?" Evan looked at Lauren, a question in his eyes. "If you want my help," Lauren said carefully, "I'm here. But this is your family, your decision." "Your family too," Lila said with her characteristic bluntness. "You're here all the time. You help with homework. You know we like the purple toothpaste better than the blue kind. That makes you family." Lauren felt tears prick her own eyes. Evan reached for her hand, squeezing tight. "Lila's right," he said quietly. "You're family. So yes, you get a say in this." They talked for another hour, answering questions as best they could, letting the girls express all their complicated feelings about a mother they didn't remember but somehow still missed. Finally, they agreed to think about it for a few days before deciding anything. That night, after the girls were asleep, Evan and Lauren sat on the back porch wrapped in a blanket against the October chill. The neighborhood was quiet, houses lit with the warm glow of evening, the smell of wood smoke drifting from someone's fireplace. "I'm scared," Evan admitted. "Scared she'll hurt them, scared she'll disappoint them, scared they'll love her and choose her over me." "That last one's not possible," Lauren said gently. "You're their father. You're the one who stayed, who showed up every single day. That's not something that can be replaced." "But what if she offers them something I can't?" Evan asked. "A mother, that thing they don't have." Lauren turned to look at him in the darkness. "They might not have a traditional mother, but they have you. They have Mrs. Patterson. They have teachers and friends and a whole community of people who love them." She paused, then added quietly, "And they have me, for whatever that's worth." Evan's hand found hers under the blanket. "That's worth everything," he said. "You know that, right? You showing up, staying, being part of this? It's worth everything." "I love them," Lauren heard herself say, the words emerging before she'd consciously decided to speak them. "I love your daughters. I didn't plan to, didn't expect to, but somewhere along the way between burned waffles and blanket forts and grocery store meltdowns, I fell in love with them." Evan went very still. "Lauren, and I love you too," she continued, feeling like she was jumping off a cliff but unable to stop. "I love the way you parent, the way you show up, the way you're terrified of making mistakes but keep trying anyway. I love that you read 3 bedtime stories instead of 1, and that you learn to braid hair from YouTube, and that you cry at sad movies. I love all of it." For a long moment, Evan didn't respond. Lauren's heart hammered against her ribs, wondering if she'd miscalculated, if it was too soon, if she'd just ruined everything by being too honest. Then Evan pulled her close, so close she could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, and whispered into her hair, "I love you too. God, Lauren, I've been in love with you since you stayed that night at the cafe, since you listened to my daughters and saw past the chaos and decided we were worth taking a chance on. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other, letting the words settle. It wasn't a fairy tale moment. It was better. It was real. It was choosing each other with full knowledge of all the complications and difficulties that came with that choice. "What are we going to do about Melissa?" Lauren finally asked. "We're going to handle it," Evan said firmly. "Together, as a family, because that's what we are now, isn't it?" "Yeah," Lauren said softly, feeling something click into place in her chest. Some piece that had been missing for so long finally finding its home. "Yeah, I think we are." The decision about Melissa took 3 weeks to make, 3 weeks that felt simultaneously too long and not long enough. Lauren watched as Evan struggled with it, saw him lose sleep over it, witnessed him draft and delete dozens of responses to that email. The girls asked questions sporadically, usually at bedtime when big thoughts seemed to surface most easily. They wanted to know if their mother would remember them, if she'd changed, if she was sorry for leaving. Evan answered what he could and admitted when he didn't know, and Lauren loved him even more for his honesty. Finally, on a gray November afternoon, they decided together. Yes, Melissa could visit, but it would be supervised, on their terms, at a neutral location, and if the girls seemed uncomfortable at any point, it would stop immediately. No exceptions. Evan sent the email with Lauren sitting beside him on the couch, her hand on his knee for support. His finger hovered over the send button for a long moment before he pressed it. "Done," he said, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath. "God help us." "You're doing the right thing," Lauren said, even though she wasn't entirely sure that was true, but the girls deserved the chance to know their mother, even if that mother had made terrible choices. Everyone deserved a chance at redemption, didn't they? Melissa's response came within hours, effusive with gratitude and promises. They set a date for 2 weeks out, December 1st, at a family-friendly restaurant near the park. Neutral territory, witnesses around, easy escape routes if needed. Lauren helped Evan plan it like they were preparing for battle, which in some ways they were. But in the meantime, life continued. And life with the Grant family, Lauren was learning, never paused for anything. There was Thanksgiving, which Lauren spent entirely with them. She'd expected to feel like an intruder on their family traditions, but instead found herself seamlessly incorporated into everything. She helped the girls make place cards with elaborate drawings for each person. She assisted Evan with a turkey that he swore he knew how to cook, but clearly didn't, consulting YouTube videos frantically while Lauren pretended not to notice the minor kitchen disasters happening around them. She sat at their table and felt the warmth of being chosen, of being wanted, of being home. "What are you thankful for?" had been the question around the table, each person sharing. The girls went first. Aria was thankful for her new telescope that Evan had somehow scripted and saved for. Nora was thankful for her teacher who let her talk as much as she wanted during show and tell. Lila was thankful for Mr. Whiskers, the class hamster, who she'd successfully kept alive for 3 days so far. When it was Lauren's turn, she looked around the table at these 4 people who'd somehow become her entire world in just a few months and said simply, "I'm thankful that 3 brave girls decided to crash my blind date and that their father was brave enough to show up anyway." Evan's eyes went suspiciously bright. His own answer, when it came, was directed at Lauren. "I'm thankful for second chances and people who stay." The girls made gagging noises at the mushiness of it all, but they were grinning. December arrived with the first real cold snap of the season. Lauren found herself spending more nights at the Grant house than at her own apartment, her toothbrush taking up residence in the bathroom, her clothes gradually migrating into Evan's closet. They didn't talk about what it meant, this slow merging of lives. It just happened naturally, inevitably, like water finding its level. She was there the night Lila had a nightmare about the upcoming visit with Melissa. Lauren heard the crying first. She was a lighter sleeper than Evan, and slipped out of bed to go to the girls' room. She found Lila sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, trying not to wake her sisters. "What if she doesn't like us?" Lila whispered when Lauren sat beside her. "What if we're not good enough, and that's why she left?" Lauren's heart cracked. "Oh, sweetheart, that's not how it works. Your mother leaving had nothing to do with whether you were good enough. You were babies, perfect, wonderful babies. Her leaving was about her, not about you. But what if we're different now, and she still doesn't want to stay? Lauren pulled the little girl into her lap, smoothing her hair. Then that will still be about her, not about you. Some people aren't good at staying, Lila. That doesn't mean the people they leave behind are somehow lacking. It just means they haven't learned yet that the best things in life require you to show up, even when it's hard. You show up, Lila said softly, even when we're hard. You're not hard, Lauren protested. You're wonderful. We're sometimes hard, Lila said with her characteristic honesty. Daddy says so. He says we're the best hard thing that ever happened to him. Lauren smiled in the darkness. That sounds like your dad. She stayed with Lila until the girl fell back asleep, then returned to find Evan awake, sitting up in bed. You're good with them, he said as she climbed back under the covers. They make it easy, Lauren replied. No, they don't, Evan said. They're complicated and emotional, and they've got trauma they don't even fully understand yet. But you show up anyway. You don't flinch when things get hard. I'm learning not to run, Lauren admitted. It's not always easy. Sometimes I still get scared that I'm going to mess this up, that I'm not enough for what you all need. Evan pulled her close, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. You know what you told Lila? About how Melissa leaving wasn't about them? You need to hear that too. David leaving wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because he wasn't enough, not brave enough, not committed enough, not willing to work for something that mattered. When did you get so wise? Lauren asked, her voice thick with emotion. When I had to raise 3 girls alone, Evan said simply. You learn things about what matters, about who shows up, about love being a choice you make every single day, not just a feeling you have when it's convenient. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and Lauren dreamed of gardens and tree houses and children laughing in autumn leaves. December 1st arrived too quickly. Lauren had offered to sit this one out, to let Evan and the girls meet Melissa without the complication of another person, but the girls had insisted she come. We need you there, Arya had said firmly, in case it gets weird. It's definitely going to get weird, Nora had added. So Lauren found herself walking into a bright, cheerful family restaurant with Evan's hand gripped tightly in hers and 3 nervous girls trailing behind them. They dressed carefully, the girls in matching dresses that they'd picked out themselves, wanting to look nice for this mother they didn't remember. Evan wore a button-down shirt and looked like he might be sick. Lauren had gone with simple black pants and a soft sweater, trying to look supportive but not threatening, present but not intrusive. Melissa was already there, waiting at a booth in the back. Lauren recognized her immediately from the photos Evan kept in a box in the closet, the ones the girls asked to see sometimes. She was beautiful, blonde hair, delicate features, the kind of beauty that translated well to camera. She looked young still, though she had to be in her mid-30s by now. She wore designer clothes and makeup that looked professionally done. And when she stood as they approached, Lauren noticed her hands were shaking. Evan, Melissa said, her voice uncertain. Then her eyes went to the girls, and something in her expression crumbled. Oh my God, you're so big! The girls pressed closer to Evan, suddenly shy. After weeks of questions and curiosity, faced with the reality of their mother, they seemed to shrink. Girls, this is Melissa, Evan said, his voice carefully neutral. Your mother. Hi, Arya managed. Nora and Lila just stared. Melissa's eyes flicked to Lauren, a question in them. And you are? Lauren Hayes, Lauren said, extending her hand because politeness was a reflex even in awkward situations. I'm a friend of the family. Friend, Melissa repeated, and something in her tone suggested she understood it was more than that. Her handshake was brief, perfunctory. I see. They sat down, Evan and the girls on one side, Melissa on the other, Lauren beside Melissa because someone had to, and the spatial dynamics mattered. The waitress came and went with drink orders. Nobody seemed to know what to say. Finally, Melissa cleared her throat. You look so much like me, she said, addressing the girls. All 3 of you. I see myself in your faces. We have Daddy's eyes, Lila pointed out. Blue like the sky. Yes, Melissa agreed. That's true. But your hair, your features, those are from me. There was something in the way she said it that bothered Lauren. Something proprietary. Like she was claiming ownership of these children she'd abandoned. Lauren felt Evan tense beside her. They have your hair, Evan said evenly, but they have their own personalities, their own interests, their own lives that they've built. Of course, Melissa said quickly. I didn't mean... She stopped, started again. Can you tell me about yourselves? What do you like? What are you interested in? The girls looked at each other, that silent communication happening. Then Arya, always the bravest, started talking about her love of astronomy, about the telescope she'd gotten for her birthday, about how she wanted to be an astronaut someday. Nora chimed in about her rock collection, about the different types of minerals she'd learned to identify. Lila talked about art class, about the painting she'd done that was hanging in the school hallway. Melissa listened, nodding, smiling, saying all the right things. But Lauren, who'd spent months learning to read these girls, noticed what Melissa didn't. She noticed that Arya's hands were twisting her napkin under the table, that Nora kept glancing at Evan for reassurance, that Lila's voice got higher the way it did when she was nervous. They sound wonderful, Melissa said when they'd finished. Talented, smart. You've done a good job with them, Evan. The casual compliment, tossed off like Evan was a babysitter rather than their father, made Lauren's jaw clench. Beside her, she felt Evan's leg pressed against hers under the table, a deliberate touch seeking comfort or offering it. They've done a good job being themselves, Evan said carefully. I'm just along for the ride. Always so modest, Melissa said, and there was something in her voice, nostalgia maybe, or regret. She turned back to the girls. I've missed so much. I wish I could go back and do things differently. Why did you leave? Nora asked suddenly, her voice small but determined. If you wish you did things differently, why did you leave in the first place? The question hung there, heavy and unavoidable. Melissa's perfect makeup couldn't hide the way her face went pale. I was young, she said finally, and scared. I had dreams that I thought I'd lose if I stayed. Acting was everything to me, and I couldn't see how to be a mother and still chase that dream. So you chose acting, Arya said flatly. I did, Melissa admitted, and I'm not going to lie and say it was the right choice. I made a mistake. I know that now. What changed? Lauren heard herself ask. All eyes turned to her, and she felt like maybe she should have stayed quiet, but the question was out now. Melissa looked at her, and for the first time, Lauren saw something genuine in her expression, pain maybe, or loss. Life didn't turn out how I expected, Melissa said quietly. The career didn't happen the way I thought it would. I had a few small roles, nothing major, and somewhere along the way, I realized I'd given up the most important roles I'd ever have, being their mother, for parts I didn't even get. That's sad, Lila said with her blunt honesty, but it's also your fault. Lila, Evan said warningly, but Melissa held up a hand. She's right, Melissa said. It is my fault. Completely. I made choices that hurt people I should have protected. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope maybe we can start to know each other, if you want to. The girls looked at Evan, seeking guidance. He took a breath, clearly choosing his words carefully. That's up to you three, he said. This is your decision. No pressure either way. If you want to get to know Melissa, we can arrange that. If you don't, that's okay too. More silent triplet communication. Lauren watched it happen, feeling like she was witnessing something sacred. These three girls who'd learned to navigate the world together, making another major decision as a unit. Can we think about it? Arya asked finally. Of course, Melissa said quickly. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on anyone at the table. They made it through the rest of the meal with stilted conversation and long pauses. Melissa asked more questions about school, about friends, about their lives. The girls answered politely but with increasing brevity. By the time the check came, everyone looked exhausted. Outside the restaurant, Melissa lingered, clearly reluctant to leave. Can I hug you? She asked the girls. Would that be okay? The girls looked at each other again, then at Evan, then back at Melissa. Finally, Arya stepped forward stiffly. Melissa hugged her carefully, like she was holding something fragile that might break. Nora followed, then Lila. Each hug was brief, formal. Nothing like the way the girls hugged Lauren or Evan or even Mrs. Patterson. Thank you for giving me this chance, Melissa said to Evan. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, Evan said, not unkindly, but not gently either. But they deserve the chance to decide for themselves what kind of relationship they want with you. So we're doing this for them, not for you. Melissa flinched but nodded. I understand. She left in a sleek car that probably cost more than Evan made in 6 months. They stood in the parking lot watching her drive away, and Lauren saw the tension slowly drain from everyone's shoulders. Well, Evan said finally, that happened. She's pretty, Nora observed, but she's not what I thought she'd be. What did you think she'd be? Lauren asked gently. I don't know, Nora said. More something. She just seemed like a regular person who made really bad choices. That's exactly what she is, Evan said quietly. In the car on the way home, the girls were unusually quiet. Lauren twisted in the passenger seat to look at them, watching their faces in the rearview mirror. You okay back there? She asked. I don't know, Arya said honestly. It was weird. She felt like a stranger. She is a stranger, Lila pointed out. We don't know her at all. But she's supposed to be our mom, Nora said softly. Shouldn't we feel something? Shouldn't there be some kind of connection because she's our mom? Evan pulled the car over into a parking lot, put it in park, and turned around to face his daughters. Listen to me, he said intensely. Biology doesn't automatically create connection. Love creates connection. Showing up creates connection. Time and care and attention create connection. Melissa is your biological mother, and that means something, but it doesn't automatically mean you have to feel connected to her. That's something you build over time, and only if you want to. Do you want us to build it? Arya asked. Do you want us to have a relationship with her? Evan was quiet for a moment, clearly wrestling with his answer. What I want, he said finally, is for you three to have every opportunity to be happy and loved and secure. If having a relationship with Melissa contributes to that, then yes, I want you to have it. But if it doesn't, if it makes you unhappy or confused or hurts you in any way, then no. I want you protected more than I want anything else. What about you? Lila asked. Will it hurt you if we love her? Oh, baby, Evan said, his voice breaking slightly. You can't hurt me by loving someone. Love doesn't work like that. There's not a limited amount. You loving her, if you choose to, doesn't mean you love me less. Hearts don't have a maximum capacity. Lauren felt tears sliding down her cheeks, watching this man she loved navigate this impossible situation with such grace and honesty. What about Lauren? Nora asked, and suddenly all eyes were on her. Where does she fit? Where do you want her to fit? Evan asked carefully. The girls looked at each other again, then at Lauren. Can you be like a bonus mom? Lila asked. Like, we have a biological mom who we maybe want to know a little bit, but we also have Lauren who's here all the time and knows we like purple toothpaste and helps with homework and doesn't feel like a stranger. Lauren's breath caught. If that's what you want, she managed, I would be honored to be your bonus mom. Not bonus, Arya corrected. Just mom, regular mom, the kind who stays. And there it was, the thing they'd all been dancing around for months, suddenly spoken aloud by a 7-year-old girl who understood more about love and family than most adults ever would. Evan reached across the console and grabbed Lauren's hand. Is that okay? He asked her quietly. I know we haven't talked about this, about what we are exactly, but if the girls are asking, yes, Lauren said immediately. Yes, it's okay. It's more than okay. They drove home in a different kind of quiet, not uncomfortable now, but contemplative. The girls seemed lighter somehow, like naming the thing they'd all been feeling had released some pressure. That night, after the girls were asleep, Evan and Lauren sat in the kitchen with mugs of tea neither of them was drinking. That was intense, Lauren said finally. I'm sorry, Evan said immediately. They shouldn't have put you on the spot like that. We should have talked about it first, privately, before they asked. Evan? Lauren interrupted. Stop apologizing. I meant what I said. I'm honored. I love those girls like they're my own. But they're not, Evan said carefully. They're not your biological children. You can't have... He stopped, clearly realizing what he was about to say. I can't have biological children, Lauren finished for him. You can say it. It's a fact, not a shameful secret. I just meant you could still have that, if you wanted. If this doesn't work out with us, you could find someone and adopt, or do IVF, or I could have this, Lauren said firmly. I could have 3 beautiful girls who chose me, who want me to be their mom, not their bonus mom, or their dad's girlfriend, or their temporary caretaker, their mom. Are you sure? Evan asked, and there was something vulnerable in his expression. Because once you say yes to this, once you become their mom in their minds, you can't take it back. They've already lost one mother. If you leave, I'm not leaving, Lauren said with more certainty than she'd felt about anything in years. Evan, I'm not going anywhere. I love you. I love them. This is my family now. Evan's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Say that again. Which part? The family part. Lauren stood up, moved around the table, and pulled him to his feet. She took his face in her hands and said clearly, You are my family. Those 3 girls sleeping upstairs are my family. This chaotic, imperfect, beautiful life we're building together is my family, and I choose it. I choose all of you. Evan kissed her then, desperate and grateful and full of promise. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers and whispered, Marry me. Lauren's breath stopped. What? Marry me, Evan repeated, pulling back to look her in the eyes. I don't have a ring. I haven't planned anything. This is possibly the worst proposal in the history of proposals. But I love you, and you love us, and life is short and unpredictable, and I don't want to waste any more time. So marry me. Be their mom officially. Be my wife. Say yes. Lauren thought about the Lauren from 6 months ago, sitting alone in that cafe, convinced she was destined to be alone because she couldn't give someone the traditional family they wanted. She thought about walls she'd built and how completely they'd been demolished by 3 little girls and their brave, broken, beautiful father. She thought about love being a choice, not a feeling, about families being built, not born, about healing happening in the most unexpected ways. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you, all of you. Evan picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, both of them laughing like teenagers. When he set her down, they were both grinning like idiots. We should tell the girls, Evan said. Now? It's almost midnight. They'll kill us if we wait until morning, Evan pointed out. You know they will. He was right. They crept upstairs and gently woke the girls, who were groggy and confused, until Evan said, Lauren and I have something to tell you. All 3 girls sat up immediately, sleep vanishing. Are you getting married? Arya asked, with the confidence of someone who'd been expecting this. Yes, Evan confirmed. If that's okay with you 3. The squealing that followed was loud enough that Evan had to shush them before they woke the neighbors. The girls piled out of their beds and threw themselves at Lauren, a tangle of pajamas and blonde hair and pure joy. Does this mean you're really our mom now? Lila asked. If you want me to be, Lauren said. We want, all 3 girls said together. They ended up having an impromptu celebration in the girls' room, sitting in a circle on the floor at midnight, making plans for a wedding that would undoubtedly be chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect for them. Can we wear matching dresses? Nora asked. Whatever you want, Lauren promised. Can we help plan everything? Arya added. Every single detail, Evan confirmed. Can we tell everyone at school that we have a mom now? Lila asked, and the question was so full of hope that Lauren felt her heart might actually burst. Yes, she said, pulling Lila close. You can tell everyone because it's true. You have a mom. You've had one for a while now. We're just making it official. Eventually, they got the girls settled back in bed, though sleep was clearly going to be elusive for everyone. Lauren and Evan returned to their room, climbing into bed still giddy with the enormity of what they'd just decided. We're really doing this, Evan said, sounding slightly awed. We're really doing this, Lauren confirmed. You know it's going to be chaos, right? Planning a wedding with 3 7-year-olds as consultants? I'm counting on it, Lauren said, snuggling closer to him. I wouldn't want it any other way. She fell asleep that night, engaged to a man she'd known for less than 6 months, about to become the mother to 3 children she'd met at a cafe when they crashed her blind date. By any reasonable standard, it was too fast, too much, too risky. But love, Lauren was learning, wasn't reasonable. It was brave. It was choosing each other every day. It was showing up even when you were scared. It was three little girls who refused to let their father give up on happiness. It was burnt waffles and blanket forts and homework help and middle-of-the-night nightmare comfort. It was family in all its messy, imperfect, absolutely beautiful glory. And Lauren Hayes, who'd thought her chance at family had been taken away by a medical diagnosis and a coward who couldn't see past biology, had found something better. She'd found a family that chose her, that wanted her, that needed her just as much as she needed them. She'd found home. Morning came too early and not early enough. Lauren woke to find the bed beside her empty and voices drifting up from downstairs, excited, conspiratorial whispers punctuated by giggles. She smiled into her pillow, knowing exactly what was happening. The girls were planning, probably dragging their father into whatever elaborate schemes 7-year-olds could devise for a wedding. When she made her way downstairs in one of Evan's old college sweatshirts, she found organized chaos in the kitchen. The table was covered in construction paper, markers, glitter, so much glitter, and what appeared to be the beginnings of invitation designs. Evan stood at the stove making pancakes, looking exhausted and happier than she'd ever seen him. "We're making invitations," Lila announced before Lauren had even fully entered the room. "Look, this one has sparkles and a rainbow and a unicorn because every wedding needs a unicorn." "Obviously," Lauren agreed, examining the masterpiece that was 90% glitter and 10% paper. "Daddy said we have to actually plan the wedding before we make invitations," Arya said, her tone suggesting this was a minor technicality she was willing to overlook. "But we wanted to start with the fun part first." "When is the wedding?" Nora asked, looking up at Lauren with those bright blue eyes. "Can it be soon? Like next week?" "Maybe not next week," Evan said from the stove. "These things take time to plan." "How much time?" Lila pressed. Lauren caught Evan's eye across the room. They hadn't actually discussed this detail in the giddy rush of midnight proposals and impromptu celebrations. She saw the question in his expression. How long did she need? How much time, to be sure? "How about spring?" Lauren suggested. "Maybe April or May. That gives us time to plan something nice, but it's not too far away." "That's like 1,000,000 years," Lila groaned. 4 or 5 months, Arya corrected, which is a lot, but not actually 1,000,000. "Still feels like 1,000,000, Lila muttered, but she went back to her glitter with renewed determination. The next weeks blurred together in the best way possible. Lauren officially moved in, not gradually this time, but with purpose. Maya helped her pack up her apartment, making comments the entire time about how this was the fastest she'd ever seen Lauren move on anything. "6 months ago you were convinced you'd be alone forever," Maya said, wrapping dishes in newspaper. "Now you're getting married and becoming an instant mother to triplets. You don't do anything halfway, do you?" "Apparently not," Lauren agreed, carefully packing the framed photo of her own mother, the only thing from her old life she truly cared about keeping close. "Are you scared?" Maya asked more seriously, setting down her packing duties to look at Lauren directly. Lauren considered the question. "Terrified," she admitted. "Every single day I wake up and think, what if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough at this mom thing? What if the girls realize they made a mistake? What if Evan realizes he proposed too fast and regrets it?" "But," Maya prompted, because she knew Lauren well enough to know there was a but. "But I'm more scared of not trying," Lauren finished. "I'm more scared of walking away from this and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. These people, they've shown me what love actually looks like. Not the fairy tale version, but the real version. The version that's messy and complicated and requires you to show up even when you're scared. And I want that. I want all of it." Maya pulled her into a hug. "You deserve it," she said fiercely. "All of it. And for what it's worth, I think you're going to be an amazing mom." The girls helped unpack boxes in what was now officially Lauren's home too, not just the place she stayed sometimes. They insisted on organizing her clothes, which meant everything got sorted by color rather than any logical system. But Lauren didn't care. She cared that Nora carefully hung up each item, that Arya folded sweaters with intense concentration, that Lila provided running commentary on which outfits were her favorites. "This one makes you look like a princess," Lila announced, holding up a dress Lauren had worn to a wedding years ago. "Save that one for your wedding," Nora suggested excitedly. "I think I might want something new," Lauren said gently. Something we pick out together. Would you three want to help me find a wedding dress? The squealing that followed confirmed this was the right answer. But wedding planning had to share space with regular life, and regular life with the Grant family was never simple. There was still the situation with Melissa, who'd been sending emails asking for more visits. The girls remained ambivalent, curious enough to say yes, but not enthusiastic, going through the motions of getting to know their biological mother without any real warmth. The second meeting happened at a children's museum, neutral territory with lots of distractions. Lauren went again, not hovering, but present, watching as Melissa tried too hard to connect. She brought expensive gifts, an elaborate doll for Lila, a professional telescope for Arya that was far too advanced, a jewelry-making kit for Nora, who'd never expressed interest in jewelry. "Thank you," the girl said politely, but Lauren saw how they clutched the gifts awkwardly, unsure what to do with these offerings that felt more like attempts to buy affection than genuine expressions of understanding. Melissa spent the afternoon asking questions she should have already known the answers to if she'd been present. What were their favorite colors, their favorite foods, their friends' names? The girls answered dutifully, but there was a distance there, a wall that Melissa couldn't seem to breach no matter how hard she tried. Afterward, in the car, Arya said quietly, "She's trying. I can tell she's trying, but it feels fake, like she's reading from a script of how to be a mom instead of actually being one." "That's because she doesn't know you yet," Evan said carefully, ever diplomatic. "People who love you know these things naturally because they're around you all the time. Melissa is starting from scratch." "You didn't have to start from scratch," Lila pointed out. "You were there from the beginning." "I was," Evan agreed, "and that made it easier. I learned about you as you learned about yourselves." "Lauren didn't start from the beginning either," Nora observed, "but she learned fast. She knew about the purple toothpaste after like 2 visits." "That's because Lauren paid attention," Arya said. "She asked questions and remembered the answers. Melissa asks questions but then asks the same ones next time, like she forgot." Lauren said nothing, letting the girls process their feelings without interference. But privately she agreed with their assessment. Melissa was performing motherhood rather than living it, and children could always tell the difference. The third visit was the last. Melissa suggested taking the girls to a movie, and the girls agreed mostly because they wanted to see the movie regardless of who took them. But halfway through, Lila got scared. It was more intense than the preview suggested, and started crying. Melissa looked panicked, frozen, clearly unsure what to do. Meanwhile, Arya and Nora immediately flanked their sister, comforting her with the practiced ease of children who'd been each other's support system their entire lives. After the movie, standing in the lobby, Melissa tried to apologize. "I didn't know it would be scary. The reviews said it was family-friendly." "It's okay," Lila said, but she was holding Evan's hand tightly, clearly ready to go home. "Maybe next time we could do something quieter," Melissa suggested. "Something where we can talk more." The girls looked at each other, then at Evan, then back at Melissa. Arya, always the spokesperson, took a breath. "We don't think there should be a next time," she said, her voice steady despite the difficulty of what she was saying. "We appreciate that you want to know us, but it feels wrong, like we're supposed to feel something we don't feel. You're nice, but you're not our mom. Lauren is our mom." Melissa's face went pale. "I understand I haven't been there. I understand I made terrible mistakes, but I'm trying now. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for something," Nora said carefully. "It counts that you're trying. But trying now doesn't erase not trying before. And we already have a family that was there from the beginning, a family that chose us and that we chose back." "I'm your mother," Melissa said, and there was desperation in her voice now. "Biologically, I'm your mother. That has to mean something." "It means you gave birth to us," Lila said with her unflinching honesty. "Thank you for that. But being a mom is different than being a mother, and we already have a mom." Melissa looked at Evan, something pleading in her expression. "You can't let them do this. They're children. They don't understand what they're giving up." "They understand perfectly," Evan said quietly. "And this is their choice. I told you from the beginning we were doing this for them, not for you. If they don't want to continue, we don't continue." "This is her doing," Melissa said, turning to Lauren with sudden venom. You poisoned them against me. You wanted to replace me." "I didn't replace you," Lauren said calmly, though her heart was pounding. "You were already gone. I just showed up and stayed." Melissa looked like she might argue more, but something in the girls' unified front stopped her. They stood together, three identical expressions of polite but firm rejection, and even their biological mother could see there was no breaking through. "I'm sorry you feel this way," Melissa said finally, her voice cold now. "I hope someday you'll understand what you're turning down." "We understand perfectly," Arya repeated. "We're turning down someone who left and wants back in on her terms. We're choosing the people who were always there." Melissa left without saying goodbye. The girls watched her go with expressions that were more relieved than sad, and Lauren understood that sometimes closure looked like choosing who got to stay in your story. In the car afterward, nobody spoke for a long time. Then Lila said softly, "Are we bad people for not wanting to know her?" "No," Lauren and Evan said simultaneously. "You're not bad people," Lauren continued. "You're people who know what you need and what you don't. That's not cruel. That's healthy." "Will she be sad?" Nora asked. "Probably," Evan admitted. "But that's not your responsibility. You don't owe her a relationship just because she regrets her choices. You get to decide who gets to be close to you." "We choose you," Arya said, looking at Lauren. "We choose you to be our mom. Is that still okay?" "That's more than okay," Lauren said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's everything." They didn't hear from Melissa again. Lauren wondered sometimes if she'd gone back to California, back to chasing whatever dream she'd sacrificed her family for. But mostly she didn't think about it. She was too busy living the life they were building together. December rolled into January. Wedding plans kicked into high gear, complicated by the fact that three 7-year-olds had very strong opinions about every single detail. They wanted a rainbow cake, not rainbow frosting, but actual rainbow layers inside. They wanted flower girl dresses that matched each other, but were different from everyone else's. They wanted the ceremony to include a part where they got to say something too, because, as Lila pointed out, they were becoming a family together, not just Evan and Lauren. "What would you want to say?" Lauren asked one evening while they worked on wedding planning, spread out across the living room floor with magazines and fabric samples and approximately 7 different shades of pink that all looked identical to Lauren but were apparently vastly different to Nora. The girls thought about it seriously. "I want to say thank you for choosing us," Arya said finally. "Because you could have run away like lots of people did, but you stayed." "I want to say thank you for making Daddy happy," Nora added. "Because he was sad before. Not all the time sad, but sometimes sad. And now he's not." I want to say thank you for knowing about the purple toothpaste," Lila said, making everyone laugh. "And for being patient when we're annoying, and for loving us even though we're a lot." "You're not too much," Lauren said firmly, pulling Lila into her lap. "You're exactly enough, all 3 of you." The wedding dress shopping trip was everything Lauren could have hoped for and slightly more chaotic. The girls had opinions, so many opinions, about what Lauren should wear. Too puffy, not puffy enough, wrong shade of white, right shade but wrong style. The saleswoman at the bridal shop looked overwhelmed within 15 minutes, but then Lauren tried on a dress, simple, elegant, with delicate lace on the sleeves, and when she stepped out of the dressing room, all 3 girls went quiet. "That's the one," Arya breathed. "You look like a princess," Nora agreed, "but like a real princess, not a cartoon one." "You look like you," Lila said simply, "but fancier." Lauren looked at herself in the mirror, flanked by 3 little girls in their regular clothes, and felt tears well up. This was her family, these girls who'd crashed her blind date and demanded she give their father a chance. This man who'd shown her what it meant to stay, to choose love every single day, even when it was hard. "This is the one," she agreed. Maya, who'd accompanied them on this expedition, wiped at her own eyes. "You're going to be a beautiful bride," she said. "Your mom would be so proud." Lauren thought about her mother, about the garden they'd tended together, about the lessons she'd learned about love and patience and showing up. She wished her mom could be here for this, could meet Evan and the girls, could see that her daughter had finally found her place. "I think she would be too," Lauren said softly. The girls found their own dresses, matching in style, but each in a different shade of their favorite colors. Arya chose deep purple, Nora picked blue, and Lila selected yellow. They looked beautiful and unique and perfectly themselves. February brought Valentine's Day, which the girls insisted on celebrating with homemade cards and slightly burned cookies they'd attempted to make themselves. Lauren came home from work to find the kitchen covered in flour and chocolate chips, 3 guilty-looking girls, and Evan attempting damage control. "We wanted to surprise you," Arya explained. "Mission accomplished," Lauren said, trying not to laugh at the state of the kitchen. The cookies were terrible, somehow both burned and underdone, but Lauren ate 3 of them and declared them the best cookies she'd ever had. Because that's what you did when you loved people. You appreciated their efforts even when the results were disasters. March arrived with rain and the first hints of spring. The wedding was scheduled for April 15th, Tax Day, which Evan joked was appropriate since love was both a calculated risk and potentially expensive. Lauren had officially taken on her role as the girl's mother in every way that mattered, except legally. That would come after the wedding, when they'd begin the adoption process. Her law firm had been supportive, adjusting her schedule so she could be there for school pickups and dance recitals, and the million small things that being a parent required. Some of her colleagues looked at her like she was crazy, taking on 3 kids at once, marrying someone she'd known for less than a year. But Lauren had learned to stop caring what other people thought. She knew what made sense for her life, for her heart. 2 weeks before the wedding, Evan's mother arrived from Florida, where she'd retired 5 years earlier. Margaret Grant was everything Lauren hoped she'd be. Warm, funny, capable of keeping up with her granddaughter's energy, and openly delighted that her son had found someone. "I was worried about him," Margaret confided to Lauren one afternoon while they worked on wedding favors. The girls were at school, and Evan was at work, leaving them with rare quiet time. After Melissa left, he shut down for a while. Oh, he functioned. He took care of the girls beautifully, but there was this light in him that went out. I hadn't seen it again until he called to tell me about you. "He's an amazing father," Lauren said. "He is," Margaret agreed, "but he's also a man who deserves to be loved, who deserves a partner. I'm glad he found you, or rather I'm glad my granddaughters orchestrated a blind date ambush that brought you together." Lauren laughed. "They're very determined when they want something." "They get that from their father," Margaret said. "And apparently from you, too. My son tells me you're a family lawyer, that you fight for families in difficult situations." "I try," Lauren said. "I believe everyone deserves a family that chooses them, that fights for them. Biological or chosen, it doesn't matter. What matters is the commitment." Margaret reached over and squeezed Lauren's hand. "You're going to be a wonderful addition to this family, and for what it's worth, I think you already are." The night before the wedding, following tradition, Lauren stayed at Maya's apartment. The girls protested this separation. They'd gotten used to Lauren being there every night, but accepted it with the understanding that traditions were important even when they were inconvenient. "You'll see her tomorrow," Evan assured them as Lauren packed her overnight bag. "And then she'll be here forever." "Promise?" Lila asked Lauren directly. "Promise," Lauren said firmly. "Tomorrow I become your mom officially, and moms don't leave." At Maya's apartment, surrounded by wedding dress preparations and last-minute details, Lauren felt the reality of what was about to happen settle over her. Tomorrow she was getting married. Tomorrow she was becoming a wife and a mother simultaneously. Tomorrow her entire life was changing in ways she couldn't even fully comprehend yet. "Having second thoughts?" Maya asked, watching her friend's face. "Not even a little," Lauren said immediately. "More like, first thoughts? Final thoughts? I'm just taking it all in. 6 months ago, I was alone and convinced I'd always be alone. And tomorrow, I'm marrying a man I love desperately and becoming the mother to 3 incredible little girls who chose me. How did this happen?" "You let it happen," Maya said simply. "You let down your walls. You took a risk. You stayed even when you were scared." "Best decision I ever made," Lauren said. "Second best," Maya corrected. "The best decision was that first night at the cafe when 3 random kids showed up and you didn't immediately run away screaming." Lauren laughed. "That's fair." That was a pretty pivotal moment. She slept fitfully that night, dreams mixing with waking thoughts until her alarm went off at 7. Her wedding day had arrived. The ceremony was at Rosewood Cafe. Where else could it be? They'd rented out the entire place for the afternoon, decorated it with spring flowers and twinkling lights. It was small, intimate, just close friends and family. Lauren's father had passed away years ago, so Maya would walk her down the aisle. The girls would stand with them, part of the ceremony rather than just witnesses to it. Lauren was getting ready in the cafe's back room when she heard a soft knock. "Come in," she called, expecting Maya. Instead, 3 little girls in their colorful dresses peeked around the door. "We're not supposed to see you yet," Arya said, "but we made you something and we wanted to give it to you before." They filed in, holding something carefully. It was a card, handmade, covered in their trademark excessive glitter. On the front, in careful lettering, it said, "To our mom." Lauren's vision blurred immediately. "You made this?" "Open it," Nora urged. Inside, each girl had written a message in their distinctive handwriting. Arya's was neat and precise. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for making our family complete." Nora's was enthusiastic and slightly messy. "We love you so much. You're the best mom ever. Today is the best day." Lila's was shortest, but hit hardest. "You're the mom we always wanted. Love, Lila." Lauren pulled all 3 girls into a hug, not caring that she was probably getting makeup on their dresses, or that she was crying and would need to redo her face. "I love you 3 so much," she said. "Thank you for being brave enough to find me that night. Thank you for giving your dad and me a chance. Thank you for being exactly who you are." "Are you nervous?" Arya asked. "A little," Lauren admitted, "but more excited than nervous. I get to marry your dad and officially become your mom. That's pretty much the best thing ever." "We're excited too," Nora said. "Daddy's been pacing all morning. Mrs. Patterson had to tell him to stop before he wore out the carpet." Lauren smiled through her tears, picturing Evan just as nervous and excited as she was. The girls left to take their places, and Maya came in to help Lauren finish getting ready. 20 minutes later, Lauren stood at the entrance to the cafe, looking down an aisle lined with their closest friends and family. At the end, Evan waited with the officiant, looking impossibly handsome in his dark suit, his eyes already shining with emotion. The girls stood beside him, each holding a small bouquet, their faces lit with joy. The ceremony was simple and perfect. Evan's vows made Lauren cry. He talked about burned pancakes and blind dates and 3 brave little girls who taught him that love was worth the risk. He talked about Lauren showing up and staying, about her choosing not just him, but all of them, about how she'd taken their broken family and made it whole. Lauren's vows were probably incoherent through her tears, but she managed to say what mattered, that Evan had shown her what real love looked like, that his daughters had reminded her that family was about choice, that she'd spent 3 years believing she wasn't enough until 4 people proved her wrong. Then came the part the girls had requested. The officiant invited them forward, and they stood between Evan and Lauren, forming a circle. "We want to make promises too," Arya said, her voice clear and confident, "because we're becoming a family together." "I promise to listen when you talk," Nora said, "and to remember the important stuff like purple toothpaste and how you like your coffee." "I promise to be patient," Lila added, "even when you make mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes, and that's okay." "And we all promise to love you forever," Arya finished, "because that's what families do. They stay." There wasn't a dry eye in the cafe. The officiant, slightly choked up himself, completed the ceremony. When he said, "You may kiss the bride," the girls cheered so loudly that several guests laughed. The reception was everything a wedding should be: good food, terrible dancing, speeches that were both heartfelt and slightly embarrassing. Margaret told stories about Evan as a child that made the girls shriek with laughter. Maya gave a toast about Lauren's journey from heartbreak to healing. The girls performed a dance they'd choreographed themselves that was mostly enthusiastic jumping, but absolutely precious. Lauren danced with Evan, with the girls, with her new mother-in-law, with Maya. She ate too much cake, the rainbow layer cake the girls had insisted on, which was as delicious as it was colorful. She laughed until her cheeks hurt and cried happy tears more times than she could count. As the afternoon faded into evening, she found herself standing at the cafe window, looking out at the street where she'd parked that night 6 months ago, where she'd walked in expecting disappointment and found everything instead. Evan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "That night," Lauren said, "when I sat at that table, alone, convinced I was destined to be alone forever. I was so angry at myself for even trying, for hoping." "And now?" Evan prompted. "Now I'm grateful I tried. Grateful I stayed when 3 little matchmakers showed up with an absurd plan. Grateful you ran through the rain to meet me. Grateful for every single moment that led us here." "Me too," Evan said softly, kissing her temple. "Best blind date ever." "Even though you were late?" Lauren teased. "Especially because I was late," Evan countered. "If I'd been on time, the girls wouldn't have had time to work their magic. Clearly, my terrible sense of timing was actually perfect timing." Lauren laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "I love you," she said. "You and your terrible timing, and your 3 determined daughters, and your burned pancakes, and all of it." "I love you too," Evan replied. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for being exactly what we needed, even when we didn't know we needed it." The girls found them then, demanding that it was time for more dancing, that they couldn't waste a single moment of this perfect day. Lauren let herself be pulled onto the makeshift dance floor, laughing as the girls twirled her around with more enthusiasm than skill. This was her life now. This beautiful, chaotic, imperfect life full of people who'd chosen her and whom she'd chosen back. This family built not on biology, but on showing up, on staying, on choosing each other every single day. Later that night, after the wedding was over and the guests had gone home, they returned to the house as a legally bound family. The girls were exhausted but wired, talking a mile a minute about every detail of the day. Lauren helped them change into pajamas, listened to their excited recounting of who said what and who ate the most cake. "Best day ever," Lila declared as Lauren tucked her in. "Top 5, definitely," Arya agreed. "What are the other 4?" Lauren asked curiously. The girls thought about it. "The day we met you," Nora said immediately. "The day Daddy told us you were getting married," Arya added. "Christmas," Lila contributed, "because Christmas is always good." "And the day you officially became our mom," Nora finished. "Which is today. So really, today might be the best day twice." Lauren kissed each of their foreheads, overwhelmed with love for these 3 small humans who'd changed her entire life trajectory. "I'm honored to be your mom," she said. "Every single day, I'm honored." "We're honored you stayed," Arya said sleepily. "Lots of people didn't, but you did." Downstairs, Lauren found Evan opening a bottle of champagne, 2 glasses waiting. "To Mrs. Grant," he said, handing her a glass. "To Mr. Grant," Lauren replied, "and to the 3 best matchmakers in the history of matchmaking." They clinked glasses and drank, sitting on the couch that Lauren now thought of as theirs, in the house that was now hers, with 3 children sleeping upstairs who were now legally hers too. The adoption paperwork would be filed first thing Monday morning. "What do you think they'll remember about today?" Evan asked. 20 years from now, when they're telling their own kids about our wedding, what details will stick?" "Probably the rainbow cake," Lauren said immediately, making Evan laugh. "But maybe also the promises they made. The way they stood up there and committed to this family with just as much intention as we did. That felt important." "It was important," Evan agreed. "They're not just witnessing us becoming a family. They're part of creating it. That's different." "Everything about this is different," Lauren said softly. "Different from what I expected my life to look like. Different from what I thought I wanted. Better than anything I could have planned." "Same," Evan said, pulling her close. "I thought my story was over. I thought I'd had my chance at love and lost it, and now I was just a single dad doing his best. I never expected 3 determined 7-year-olds to stage an intervention that would change everything." "Thank God for determined 7-year-olds, Lauren said. They sat in comfortable silence, finishing their champagne, listening to the house settle around them. This house that now held all their stories, the burned breakfasts and blanket forts, the homework struggles and bedtime stories, the hard conversations and joyful celebrations. Every room held memories they'd built together, and every day would add more. "Lauren?" Evan said after a while. "Hmm? Do you ever think about what your ex-fiancé said? About how this wasn't what he signed up for?" Lauren considered the question. She could barely remember David's face now, could barely recall why she'd wanted to marry him in the first place. That version of herself, the one who'd been destroyed by his rejection, felt like a stranger. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but only to think how wrong he was. He acted like my medical situation was a deal breaker, like I was somehow deficient because I might not be able to have biological children. But he was wrong. This," she gestured around the house, encompassing everything it represented. "This is what I signed up for. This is what I was always supposed to have. I just didn't know it yet." "The girls aren't a consolation prize," Evan said quietly. "You know that, right? You're not settling for someone else's children because you can't have your own. You chose this. You chose them." "I chose them," Lauren confirmed, "and I'd choose them again every single time. They're not my backup plan or my second choice. They're my first choice, my only choice, the 3 best decisions I've ever made." "4," Evan corrected with a smile. "You chose me too." "That was easier," Lauren teased. "You came as a package deal with 3 amazing kids. I was really just choosing them and you were the bonus." Evan laughed, the sound filling the quiet house, and Lauren thought about how much she loved that sound, how she'd do almost anything to hear it. She thought about 6 months ago, sitting in that cafe convinced she was unlovable and alone. She thought about 3 little girls brave enough to take a risk for their father's happiness. She thought about all the moments between then and now that had built this life, this family, this love. Monday morning came too soon. Lauren woke to her first full day as Mrs. Grant, as a wife and a mother, as someone who belonged to this family as much as they belonged to her. The girls bounded into the bedroom at 7, jumping on the bed with complete disregard for the fact that it was supposedly a honeymoon morning. "We made you breakfast," Nora announced proudly. "Without burning anything," Lila added. "Mostly without burning anything," Arya corrected. "There was a small incident with the toast." Evan groaned, clearly still half asleep. "Please tell me you didn't use the stove without supervision." "Mrs. Patterson supervised," Nora assured him. "She came over early because she said someone needed to make sure we didn't burn the house down on your first morning as married people." They ate breakfast in bed, slightly burned toast, scrambled eggs that were actually pretty good, and orange juice served in fancy glasses that were definitely not appropriate for children, but that the girls had insisted on using. It was chaotic and messy and perfect. Later that week, Lauren officially filed the adoption paperwork. The lawyer handling it was a colleague, someone who understood the significance of what Lauren was doing. The girls came to the appointment, solemn and excited in equal measure, understanding that this was another step in making their family official in every possible way. "How long does it take?" Arya asked as they left the office. "A few months probably," Lauren explained. "There are interviews and background checks and lots of paperwork, but at the end of it, you'll legally be my daughters. My name will be on your birth certificates along with your dad's." "Will we change our names?" Nora asked. "Will we be Lauren's daughters with Lauren's last name?" "Your last name stays Grant," Lauren assured them. "I'm a Grant now too, remember? We all match." "The Grant girls," Lila said, testing out the phrase. "I like it." The months that followed were filled with the normal chaos of family life. School projects and doctor's appointments, dance recitals and parent-teacher conferences, scraped knees and hurt feelings, victories and struggles. Lauren learned the specific way each girl liked to be comforted when upset. She learned that Arya needed space, but Nora needed to talk things through, that Lila needed physical affection, and someone to just sit with her. She learned their school schedules and their friends' names and which foods they'd eat without complaint and which required negotiation. She was there when Arya won first place at the science fair with her meticulously researched project on black holes. She was there when Nora finally mastered long division and cried with relief. She was there when Lila got the lead in the school play and spent weeks practicing her lines until everyone in the house could recite them from memory. She was also there for the hard moments, when Arya had a falling out with her best friend and came home crying, when Nora struggled with a teacher who didn't understand her learning style, when Lila got sick with the flu and needed constant care. She was there in all the ways that mattered, in all the ways that made her their mother regardless of what the legal paperwork said. Summer arrived with its promise of long days and new adventures. They took a vacation to the beach, the girls' first real trip anywhere. Lauren watched them discover the ocean with wonder, building sandcastles and collecting shells, laughing as waves knocked them over. She watched Evan teaching them to boogie board, patient and encouraging even when they got frustrated. She watched this family she'd somehow become part of and felt grateful for every single moment that had led here. One evening, sitting on the beach while the girls played at the water's edge and Evan attempted to grill burgers at their rental's tiny patio, Lauren's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Lauren? It's Melissa." Lauren's breath caught. She hadn't heard from Melissa since that final meeting in February, hadn't expected to hear from her again. "Melissa, hi. I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something," Melissa said, her voice different than Lauren remembered, softer, more genuine. "I've been in therapy, dealing with a lot of things, and my therapist asked me to reach out to the people I've hurt, not to ask for forgiveness, but just to acknowledge the harm I caused." "Okay," Lauren said carefully. "I was angry at you," Melissa continued. "After that last visit, I blamed you for turning the girls against me. But that wasn't fair. You didn't turn them against me. I did that myself when I left, and you didn't replace me. You filled a space I'd left empty. I wanted you to know that I understand that now, and I'm grateful they have you, even though it hurts to admit it." Lauren didn't know what to say. She looked at the girls, at Evan, at this life she'd built. "They're amazing kids," she finally managed. "They are," Melissa agreed. "And you're clearly a good mother to them. Better than I would have been, probably. I'm not built for that kind of constant presence. But you are. So thank you for being what they needed when I couldn't be." "You're welcome," Lauren said quietly. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Melissa. I really do." After she hung up, Evan came over, 2 beers in hand. "Everything okay? You look thoughtful." "That was Melissa," Lauren said. "Calling to apologize, essentially, to acknowledge that the girls needed what I could give them." "How do you feel about that?" Evan asked. Lauren considered the question, watching the girls shriek with laughter as a wave caught them by surprise. "I feel peaceful," she decided. "I'm not angry at her. I'm not threatened by her. I'm just grateful that everything worked out the way it was supposed to. Those girls needed a mom who could stay. I needed a family to belong to. Melissa needed to follow her own path. Everyone ended up where they were supposed to be." "Very zen of you," Evan said with a smile. "Very happy of me," Lauren corrected. "I'm just happy. Is that too simple?" "Happiness is never too simple," Evan said, pulling her close. "It's exactly complicated enough." The adoption was finalized in September, right as the girls started 2nd grade. They celebrated with a party, smaller than the wedding, but no less significant. Lauren's name was officially added to their birth certificates, making her their legal mother in every way. The girls each received a certificate from the court, which they immediately insisted on hanging in their room. That night, tucking them in, Lauren felt the weight of what had happened truly settle on her. These were her daughters. Legally, emotionally, permanently her daughters. No one could take that away. No one could question it. She was their mother, and they were her children, and it was real. "Mom?" Arya said. She'd started calling Lauren Mom immediately after the wedding, but it still gave Lauren a thrill every time. "Yes, sweetheart? Do you think our story is special, like the way we became a family?" Lauren thought about it. "I think every family's story is special in its own way. But yes, I think ours is pretty unique. Not many families start with 3 girls crashing a blind date." "I'm glad we did," Nora said. "Even though we got in so much trouble." "We're still a little bit grounded," Lila added. "Daddy says what we did was dangerous, even though it worked out." "Your dad's right," Lauren said. "It was dangerous. But I'm also very, very glad you did it. You changed my life, all of our lives." "You changed ours too," Arya said softly. "You made us complete. We were okay before, but now we're better. Now we're whole." Lauren kissed each of their foreheads, turned out the light, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them settle into sleep. These three brave, determined, wonderful girls who'd decided their father deserved happiness and had done something audacious about it. Downstairs, she found Evan working on a design for his current project, but he closed his laptop when she entered. "Girls all settled?" "All settled," Lauren confirmed. She sat beside him, and he immediately pulled her close. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the house breathe around them. "You know what I realized today?" Evan said after a while. "When we were at the courthouse making the adoption official?" "What's that?" "I realized I don't remember what my life felt like before you. I know logically it's only been about 10 months since that night at the cafe, but emotionally it feels like you've always been here. Like we were incomplete before and now we're whole, and I can't even picture us any other way." "I know what you mean," Lauren said. "Sometimes I think about that version of me who sat in the cafe, convinced she'd be alone forever. She feels like a different person, like someone I used to know but don't really recognize anymore." "She was brave, though," Evan pointed out. "That version of you, she stayed when 3 random kids showed up. She gave me a second chance. She took a massive risk on a complicated situation. Without her bravery, we wouldn't be here." "True," Lauren acknowledged. "I guess she deserves some credit." "She deserves all the credit," Evan said firmly. "She decided to take a chance on love when love had hurt her. That's the bravest thing anyone can do." Lauren felt tears well up. Happy tears, grateful tears. "I love you," she said. "I love this life we've built. I love those 3 girls sleeping upstairs. I love that I get to wake up every morning and choose this. Choose all of you. Choose this beautiful, chaotic, perfect family." "I love you too," Evan replied. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for being brave enough to let down your walls and let us in." They kissed then, sweet and slow, a reaffirmation of everything they'd promised each other on their wedding day. When they pulled apart, Evan smiled and said, "Want to make some burned pancakes tomorrow, for old time's sake?" Lauren laughed. "Only if I can help you burn them." "Deal," Evan said. Upstairs, 3 little girls slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams 7-year-olds dream. They were safe and loved, and part of a family that had chosen each other deliberately, completely, permanently. They had a father who showed up every day without fail, and a mother who'd proven that biology didn't determine family, that showing up and staying mattered more than anything else. And in that living room, 2 adults who'd both been broken by love and healed by each other held each other close, grateful for blind dates and burned waffles and 3 brave little matchmakers who'd refused to let fear win. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in flowers and candlelight. Sometimes it arrives in chaos, delivered by 3 determined 7-year-olds who understand that the best things in life require courage and persistence and the willingness to take risks for the people you love. Sometimes it arrives as 3 identical voices saying, "Are you Lauren? Our daddy's sorry he's late." And sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, you're brave enough to stay and see where that chaos leads. You're brave enough to let down your walls and take the risk and choose love, even when love has hurt you before. Lauren had been brave enough, and that bravery had given her everything. A husband who loved her completely, 3 daughters who chose her daily, a family that was real and permanent and hers. She'd walked into that cafe expecting disappointment and found her entire future instead. She'd thought she was broken and discovered she was just waiting for the right people to help her heal. And now, sitting in her home with her husband beside her and her daughters sleeping peacefully upstairs, Lauren Hayes Grant understood something fundamental about love and family, and the ways life surprises you when you're brave enough to let it. The best stories don't always start the way you expect, but if you're lucky, they end exactly where they're supposed to, with a family built on choice and commitment and love that stays. They end at home.